Good morning. Welcome to the August 13th, 2026 California Board of Behavioral Sciences meeting. My name is Wendy Strack, chairperson of the board. And before we convene, I'd like to remind everyone present that the board is a consumer protection agency charged with administering and enforcing the board's laws. Where protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. The Board of Behavioral Sciences will be holding this meeting in person and via the WebEx platform. I'll announce when we're accepting public comments on the various issues. And for each public comment period, we will first be accepting comments from the participants in the audience present in the room. And then the moderator will open the lines as appropriate so that the remote audience members can comment. Each commenter will have 2 minutes to comment. And moderator, would you please provide the audience with instructions on how they may participate during the meeting at the appropriate times?
Sure. This is the moderator. When we get to public comment, you can click the raised hand icon to indicate that you would like to make a public comment. If you're an audio only participant, you can press *3 on your device to raise your hand. Once you are selected for public comment, I'll request to unmute your microphone. You'll be given leave 2 minutes to speak with a 15-second warning. And at the end of the time, your microphone will be muted and we will move on to the next individual requesting public comment.
Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to note that we will not be discussing agenda item 9 on the consent calendar, discussion and possible action to approve the May 7th and 8th board meeting minutes. That takes us to item 1, call to order and establishment of quorum. Members, during the roll call, please introduce yourself and let the public know whether you are a public or licensed member. Christina.
Good morning. Rebecca Thies.
Present, public member.
Eleanor Uribe.
Present, LCSW member.
Susan Friedman.
Present, public member.
John Sovek.
Present, LMFT, pronouns he, him.
Wendy Strack.
Present, public member.
Christopher Jones.
Present, LEP member, pronouns he, him.
Dr. Annette Walker.
Present, public member, pronouns she, her.
Lorez Bailey.
Present, public member.
Justin Huft.
Present, LMFT, he, him.
For the record, Dr. Nicholas Boyd is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Additionally, we'll be looking to take a lunch break as close to 11:30 as possible. This will depend on where we are with the hearings. On to item 2, suggestions for future agenda items. Are there any future agenda item suggestions from board members? Seeing none. Are there any in-house participants that would like to suggest future agenda items?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, our screens have all gone out. Are we still online?
Okay. Thank you. All right, moderator, are there any online audience participants that would like to suggest future agenda items?
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raised hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. On to item 3. Oh, wait. Yes, we're on item 3 now. Okay. Next, too early to be confused about the agenda, but here we are. I'll now open for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. As a reminder, the board may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during the public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. And each commenter will have 2 minutes. Do any of the board members have comments for items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none. We have no in-house participants. And are there any comments from our online audience?
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click the raised hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, at this time, we'll begin our petition hearings, and today the proceedings will be conducted by Judge Marcy Larson, And good morning, Judge Larson. The meeting is yours.
Good morning. All right, the first thing I want to do, I just want to acknowledge we have our court reporter here, Mr. Peters. Good morning. And so as soon as we go on the record, I will let you know. I need to first make sure that our parties are here. So Ms. Knapp and then the Deputy Attorney General. So I see Ms. Knapp, if you could unmute yourself and turn your camera on. All right, Ms. Knapp, can you hear me? This is Judge Larson.
Hello, Your Honor. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, excellent. And then if the Deputy Attorney General, if you could just unmute yourself and turn your camera on so that I can see you. Mr. Phillips, is that correct?
Mr. Arthur, Your Honor. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, Mr. Arthur. Yes, my first name is Phillips. Yes, good morning. Are we expecting anybody else for the hearing this morning?
Good morning, Your Honor. I represent Ms. Jennifer Knapp. For some reason, my video is not turning on, though.
Let's see if we can help you with that. I'm wondering. Oh, there we go.
Good. There we go.
Oh, okay. All right. And then help me with the pronunciation of your last name again.
Duchesne.
Duchesne. Okay. All right. So in just a moment, we are going to go on the record. I will announce the case and then I will briefly explain how the hearing will proceed. And then if there are any questions, please let me know. I want to just make sure Ms. Duchesne and Mr. Arthur that you have access to the petition documents because those will be referenced during the hearing, and you're shaking your head, Ms. Duchesne, meaning you haven't, and so does Mr. Arthur. Excellent. Okay. So Mr. Peters, if you would just let me know when you're ready and we will get started.
I'm ready, Your Honor.
All right, good. All right, on the record. Good morning. We are on the record. It is August 13th, 2026, before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California, in the matter for the petition for early termination of probation by Jennifer Suzanne Knapp. This is case number 2002-023-000-323. OAH case number 2026-071-084. My name is Marcy Larson. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, presiding over the matter this morning. And if our court reporter would please state his name and CSR number for the record.
My name is James Peters and my license number is 10,063.
All right, and for this first hearing, if the board members could please state their appearance for the record and I know a quorum has previously been established, but we want to do that on the record for this hearing. So starting with our chair, if you could please state your name.
Wendy Strack, Chair of the Board.
Right, and Ms. Bailey.
You want to go? Lorez Bailey, Public Member.
And Ms. Friedman.
Susan Friedman, Public Member.
And Mr. Huff.
Justin Huff, LMFT.
Mr. Jones.
Chris Jones, LEP member.
Right. And Mr. Suve, am I going to say that correctly?
Sovak.
Sovak.
Present. LMFT.
All right. And Mr. Thies. I'm sorry, Ms. Thies.
Rebecca Thies, Public Member.
And Ms. Europe.
Eleanor Uribe, LCSW member.
And Dr. Walker.
Yes, Dr. Annette Walker, Public Member.
All right, we have a quorum. I'm now going to ask for the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General.
Good morning, Philip Arthur.
And counsel for petitioner.
Melissa Duchesne.
All right, and Ms. Knapp is also present with us this morning. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, so I'm just going to briefly go over how the hearing will proceed this morning. So we are here today because Ms. Knapp has filed a petition for early termination of her probation. She has the burden of proving that her probation should be terminated early. The way that the hearing will proceed is that Mr. Arthur will give a brief overview of the history of discipline in this matter. He will then address the petition documents. I will want to know from you, Ms. Duchesne, if there's any objection to those documents. After Mr. Arthur has given a brief overview of the history of discipline and addressed the exhibits, It will then be Ms. Knapp's opportunity to present her case. Of course, Ms. Duche, you can ask Ms. Knapp any questions related to her request for early termination of probation. Please understand that the board is primarily concerned with the rehabilitation she has undertaken since the discipline of her license and why she is seeking early termination of probation. Please understand that the board has the benefit of the petition documents, but if there are particular documents that you want to highlight for the board, this is your opportunity to do so. After Ms. Duche questions Ms. Knapp, Mr. Arthur will have an opportunity to question her. And then, of course, Ms. Duche, if you have any objections to those questions, please let me know. After Mr. Arthur is done questioning Ms. Knapp, I will ask each of the board members if they have questions for Ms. Knapp as well. And then I will ensure that if there's any additional questions you have, Ms. Duche, you can ask those questions before the hearing is concluded. Ms. Duche, you can, of course, give an opening statement if you wish after Mr. Arthur has presented an overview of the history of discipline and addressed the exhibits as well. And then at the end, closing remarks can be given. All right. During this proceeding, if there are any questions regarding the proceedings, I can certainly answer those questions. I obviously cannot give any legal advice. Please understand that the board will be going into closed session to deliberate, so you will not receive a decision today. You will receive a written decision in the future. All right. Any questions from me before we begin with a brief overview of the history of discipline in this matter? No. All right, Mr. Arthur, if you would please provide the board with a brief overview of the history of discipline.
Thank you. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General in accordance with Government Code Section 11522. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. In this case, Ms. Knapp became a licensed clinical social worker on July 30th, 2013. Effective April 4th, 2024, her license was placed on 3 years probation via a stipulated settlement, which was based on a first amended accusation that alleged that on February 21st, 2023, Ms. Knapp was convicted of violating Vehicle Code Section 23103, Subdivision B. Ms. Knapp has complied with all terms of her probation, and she now seeks early termination of her probation. And if I could go through the petition packet, which is marked as Exhibit 1, and it begins on page master A1 in Case Center.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Exhibit 1 consists of a memo from the board's probation analyst summarizing Ms. Knapp's petition and probation compliance. It includes a redacted copy of the petition, 2 personal statements from Ms. Knapp, a letter from Ms. Knapp's attorney, documents from Ms. Knapp's criminal case showing that her conviction was expunged under Penal Code Section 1203.4 on April 11th, 2024, a letter from the board confirming Ms. Knapp's full payment of cost recovery dated October 23rd, 2024, a receipt from the Department of Consumer Affairs reflecting Ms. Knapp's payment of $450 on February 22nd, 2026, a certificate of completion for the M as in Mary, A as in Apple, D as in dog, D as in dog online victim impact panel, a chart showing Ms. Knapp's attendance at AA meetings, a letter from Options Remote Breath Alcohol Monitoring Program showing that as of December 18th, 2023, Ms. Knapp had 477 days without an alcohol incident. Hopefully I have the count right here. 83 email printouts from In the Rooms reflecting Ms. Knapp's attendance of live online video meetings. It includes 2 letters from Leslie Summerfield providing summaries of therapy sessions provided to Ms. Knapp. There are 2 performance evaluations for Ms. Knapp from Veterans Health Administration, It includes 2 awards Ms. Knapp received from the Department of Veterans Affairs. There are character reference letters from Catherine Severin and Ada Navarro. It includes documentation reflecting Ms. Knapp's custodial obligations for her 3 children, as well as documentation reflecting her children's school and counseling needs. There's a redacted copy of documents from the Knapp Family Trust, for which Ms. Knapp is a trustee. There's a certificate of completion for a parenting class, a completed psychotherapy information sheet, a letter from Leanne Avila summarizing Ms. Knapp's attendance and performance in therapy. There's the final decision in case number 200-2023-000-323, placing Ms. Knapp's license on 3 years probation, along with the accompanying stipulated settlement and underlying first amended accusation. And finally, it includes Ms. Knapp's license history certification and a notice for today's hearing. I move to submit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
All right, any objection to Exhibit 1, Ms. Duchesne?
No objection.
All right, Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you. And because the burden is on Ms. Knapp, I have no further statement, but will reserve the right to question her.
All right, Ms. Duchesne, do you wish to give any opening remarks?
I'll just give a brief opening statement for what we're going to hear today.
All right, you may proceed.
Sure. So Ms. Knapp was placed on probation subject to terms including psychotherapy, substance use monitoring, AA attendance, testing, and completion of cost recovery. As Mr. Arthur stated, she has been in compliance with those terms and satisfied the full amount of her cost recovery. And since the discipline became effective, Ms. Knapp has continued working in the same position that she has held since 2008 at the Veteran Affairs in Palo Alto Healthcare System, serving veterans that are experiencing homelessness. She has maintained her sobriety, continued therapy. She has consistently tested negative for drugs and alcohol, and you'll see today that she has attended AA well beyond the minimums required by the board. Her petition documents 674 verified AA meetings between July 2024 and April 2026. To date, she has completed 751 verified AA meetings, which we can provide. She went to a meeting as of 2 days ago. Today, Ms. Knapp will present evidence and testimony regarding her insight into the conduct that led to discipline, the rehabilitative efforts that she's undertaken since 2022, her continued professional competence, the safeguards she's developed to ensure that the circumstances of this case do not ever reoccur. And the evidence will show that she has exceeded far beyond what was required of her probation terms, that she's genuinely implemented these tools into her life and therefore deserves to have this petition to terminate granted.
All right, thank you. So, Ms. Duchesne, you please call your first witness.
Yes, I would like to call my client, Ms. Jennifer Knapp.
All right, Ms. Knapp, the first thing I need to do is swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under penalty of perjury, that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, you may lower your hand. Please state and spell your name.
Jennifer Knapp, last name K-N-A-P-P, first name J-E-N-N-I-F-E-R.
All right, Ms. Knapp, just a few ground rules to follow when you're testifying. We have a court reporter here. His job is to take down everything that's being said verbatim during the hearing. So it's very important, excuse me, it's very important that you speak up and speak clearly, and make sure that when your attorney asks you a question, you just briefly pause before you answer it. And the reason for that pause is to ensure she's done asking the question before you answer it. There could be a little bit of a delay because we're appearing remotely, and so that pause helps with that. That pause also gives Mr. Arthur an opportunity to object to a question if he wishes. He will just say the word objection, and if you hear that, do not answer the question unless I instruct you to do so. After your attorney is done questioning you, Mr. Arthur may have some questions for you. Same rules apply. And then I will ask the board members if they have questions. All right? Yes, counsel, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Knapp, how long have you been licensed as a clinical social worker?
I've been licensed since July 2013.
And where are you currently employed?
At the VA healthcare system in Palo Alto.
And what is your current position and what population do you serve?
I'm the Healthcare for Homeless Veterans coordinator, and I work with homeless veterans.
Can you elaborate on what your duties are?
Sure. So I oversee multiple programs, including emergency housing, transitional housing, street outreach, coordinated entry, which is like data tracking. I oversee the street outreach team and vocational development.
And have you remained continuously employed there throughout your probation?
Yes.
And have you had any performance or patient care concerns during your probation?
None. No.
So, referring to what happened leading to your discipline, can you explain the circumstances of the incident in August of 2022?
Sure. So I had been drinking at a friend's house. The children were in the backyard. I had I was parked pretty far away. I went to my car. It wasn't until I was in my car, basically ready to go, did I realize I couldn't drive. I don't remember too terribly much after that, but I do remember trying to problem solve and figure out how to get home, but I couldn't. So I got behind the wheel of the car with my kids in the car, and I do take full ownership and responsibility for that. It was a catastrophic lapse in judgment, and it is something I will have to live with for the rest of my life.
Referring to the content of your personal statement, at the time, were you using alcohol as a way of coping with any personal issues in your life?
Yes, so just to paint a background, I was in an abusive marriage at that point. It had been a number of years. And I was really I was declining. I really was becoming increasingly in a very dark place by the time that incident happened. Not an excuse for the decision I made, but definitely that's what was going on in the background.
As a clinical social worker, have you been trained to recognize unhealthy coping mechanisms?
Yes. And I that was definitely I was not turning the lens on myself. I was turning the lens on to the outside, but that was I definitely should have been turning the lens on myself. But yes, I am trained in that.
And why should the board trust your professional judgment now when you made this mistake back then?
So couple things. My sobriety at this point, I've been sober since August of 2022. The 477 days breathalyzer, which I conducted 5 times a day, that started, if I remember correctly, in 2022. I want to say August 2020. No, yes, August of 2022. So a few weeks after the incident. And that was a breathalyzer 5 times a day, which I did until December of 2023. Is when I ended. So that was an effort on of accountability that I took upon myself. So that was something I did voluntarily, that I did without anybody asking me to do. This was something I did. And so my sobriety, of course, the toxicology reports after my probation started, have all also been negative. So at this point, we're counting at about 4 years of documented sobriety, approximately. And to sort of add a layer to it, this sobriety was stress tested, very stress tested. It was around this time I had to take on my girls from August of 2022 to March of 23. I had my girls 100% of the time, so their father was not in the picture. And then took on them approximately 90% of the time, which of course is formalized in September of 2024, which is a part of my packet. So taking on 3 girls was definitely a layer to add while, ensuring sobriety in terms of just the stress that comes with this. To add another layer, of course, having to take care of my mom, being her durable power of attorney as her cognitive status declined, and then eventually having to handle her affairs, when she died earlier this year. Definitely added layers. So I impart that because I really want to make it clear that, my sobriety over these last 4 years didn't happen in a beautiful glass bubble. It definitely happened under real world conditions and stress tested. During that time, my performance appraisals have been exemplary. I have received outstanding performance appraisals. Um, During my probation, I've also received an Employee of the Quarter, where I was selected out of hundreds of employees. And this was done with the knowledge of my leadership, with the knowledge of my probation. I was nominated by my peers, who knew about my probation and the circumstances around it. And I at this point, and so this is external. Internally, I have worked with my therapist to really ensure that not just that I can handle the stress around me, but to also make sure my internal safeguards are solid. So we have worked on things like, you know, really respecting myself when things become intolerable, not over functioning, really looking at my codependent behavior patterns and really working to change those. We also worked on things around, of course, stress levels. So, mindfulness, gratitude exercises. My AA meetings have been useful in that it was a community for me. I can, in 2022, I isolated a lot. And so AA was definitely the first step. That was really the first step where for me, was to come out of isolation was important for me. The first people that I talked to after that incident were people in AA. And when I didn't want to talk to anybody, then I just wanted to go into my room and hide forever. But AA was my ticket to talking to other humans. So I've demonstrated that my sobriety is stress tested. I've demonstrated that during probation that my performance at work has not just been passing, but outstanding according to objective measures. And my peers believe that not only that am I passing, but also outstanding according to their nomination. And I've also worked over the last 4 years to not just ensure that, externally, that will not happen again with external factors, but also internal factors, working on not overfunctioning, respecting my own boundaries, and really ensuring that I don't indulge in any codependent tendencies. And I think with all of these things in place, nothing like that will ever happen again.
Wonderful, thank you. When did you first begin therapy?
Oh, well, my first therapist, Ms. Summerfield, I started Not that long, a couple weeks, honestly, after the incident. It took me a minute to find somebody, but not even a month after the incident.
And how has therapy changed the way that you respond to these stressful situations that you've talked about?
Back in 2022, I really saw that white knuckling and gritting through things was a sign of strength. If I could just grit my teeth and bear it and push my way through no matter what happens, that was me being strong, and that's just what strong people do. And that's how I saw myself. That's what I should do. Um, Therapy has really taught me to think of self-care as more beyond just, self-care, but, to that it's okay to speak up when before things become absolutely unbearable. That's actually a sign of self-respect. And to really work on respecting my own voice, that it's okay, even if it's just not a catastrophe, to speak up and express when things are not okay. That is a really big one. Another one I think, and that's sort of a preventative measure to make sure things don't become too stressful. But we also talked a lot about of course, worked on just kind of getting into the body, because sometimes getting to the body, breathing exercises, movement meditation, gratitude meditation, those have been exercises that we've done that I use to manage stress. And also just taking a step back and pausing has also been something that um, really was something beyond just talking that we really worked on trying to make sure was in my body.
Great, thank you. So, excuse me, you're asking the board to terminate your probation early. Why can't you just complete the remaining period of it?
Sure. So at this point, I have, I think, approximately 8 months left. And there's two sides to this. I think one side is that I would like the board to review my rehabilitation in a public forum, and to it is my way of pursuing proactive accountability, to sort of go back, touch base, and um, show what I've done since. And in a public way, I would like the board to see my rehabilitation and to verify that I'm, safe. My practice is safe. That I think brings a little bit of an added reassurance for the public rather than just waiting for the clock to burn out. That sort of brings sort of through a rigorous review, that just brings some added reassurance. Also, my probation was 3 years. I have demonstrated sobriety now for 4 years. And again, during that time, that sobriety has been stress tested, and during this time, my performance has been not just passing and of standard, but outstanding and above standard. So I think at this point, probation was definitely necessary to ensure public safety when implemented. And at this point, I think um, the safety now through this process can be assured with the evidence that I've submitted.
So following that up, do you think there's any protections that the public will lose if the board opts to terminate your probation?
No, in fact, again, with, beyond the 3 years documented sobriety, which would have been baseline for probation, they actually come with an added bonus of having a rigorous review of my rehabilitation, rather than just letting the probation expire. So there's nothing to be lost.
What safeguards currently imposed by the board would you continue voluntarily after your probation ends?
Safeguard, well, AA has been a good check-in for me. It's very helpful as a community. It's one of the few places I can talk about very openly about, you know, my recovery and my past of substance use. Therapy is also something that I've really had to come to realize is just is a part of my life now. That it's always gonna be a part of my life. And then just of course, you know, tools and safeguards. I mean, I have my tools internally with what I use now, but those might change in the future. And therapy is going to be helpful to figure out what new tools are going to be helpful for me. Should I find myself creeping back into codependency patterns? Should I find myself just gritting through and white knuckling through everything again and not speaking up? And AA is, of course, there as an accountability measure to make sure that I don't make excuses.
You mentioned that you worked with vulnerable individuals, including veterans, veterans that are experiencing homelessness. How has this experience affected the way you practice?
So I'm definitely much more empathetic to clients who really insist on the message that they're fine. You know, that they're strong and they're fine and you know, they don't need the help. Yet when you look at their life or you look at their actions, um, you know, they're not fine. And, you know, I've definitely empathized in that, definitely empathized in the shame around asking for help, in the embarrassment around asking for help, since that was also sort of a part of what I went through. And, you know, definitely trying to change the narrative with them on that it's okay to speak up. This is not a sign of weakness. This is not a sign of being a tattletale, that this is really about you standing your ground and being able to you know, show the world as well as self-respect that, you know, that you have, you know, respect for yourself to address concerns that you have.
Since the incident and being placed on probation, what feedback have you received regarding your work performance?
It's all been positive. You know, I received outstanding reviews on my performance appraisals. I have been nominated again as Employee of the Quarter among hundreds of employees in our healthcare system. I also received feedback from different projects I started, such as permanent supportive housing for geriatric clients, which is a gap currently in our homeless system. Um, and there haven't been any concerns, no complaints, no concerns around boundaries, patient safety, nothing. It's all been positive and yeah.
Okay, great. So, how can the board be confident that difficulties that arise in your personal life after this will not impair your professional judgment in the future?
Sure. So, I'll kind of divide this up into two parts. You know, there's kind of, you know, if history can tell you anything about the future, the, you know, having to take on the bulk of, you know, timeshare with three kids, was definitely a challenge, just around, you know, and on top of that, having to work full time. And then on top of that, you know, managing my mom's care and her finances while she was going through a cognitive decline. You know, there's of course a grieving process when you're working with a parent with worsening dementia. And then as I was also trying to figure out her situation, I also had to make sure upon her death, I have a brother with Down syndrome, that his benefits didn't become jeopardized because when upon her passing, and to make sure that everything was locked solid. Um, and yeah, you know, upon her passing, you know, of course, going through that grieving process, you know, all the while staying sober. Um, so that's just my personal sphere. And during that time, I have you know, my as evidence would suggest, I have not broken my sobriety at all. And then in the future, how do I make sure that, you know, should something pop up again in the future? So what has worked for me, and what has worked for me in the past, of course, was getting getting over myself and asking for help. You know, that has become more and more easy over the last years. And then, you know, really trying to catch myself when I try to overfunction. Sometimes because there was so much on my plate, there were just definitely times where I had to say, I can't do this. Um, and that was very uncomfortable at first. And so getting into that habit of doing that. You know, and then of course, ongoing check-ins, you know, accountability, you know, AA has been very helpful for accountability, and as well as my therapist has been very helpful. You know, things are going to change. I'm going to change. Having a therapist is always going to be helpful to sort of adjust, you know, as things move on in the future. And of course, that's going to be in my personal realm, and that system has really worked for me over the last few years to make sure that my sobriety does not break.
Are there any other areas of your support system that you want to share with the board?
Um, you know, I have friends now. I've that was something that I really had to make a concerted effort to do. They're all sober. Pretty much nobody that was in my life in 2022 is a part of my life now. None of them. So everybody that is in my social life is sober. You know, that was a really big thing for me, is to make sure I'm not around people who drink or try to pressure me to drink or ask me why I didn't drink anymore. That was a really big thing, and they're all out of my life now. Um, and of course, I still have family in the area that I think in 2022 I felt ashamed to reach out to. Um, and I have I don't feel ashamed to reach out to them now, but they are really important in my life. And yeah, just my family and friends. Friends are all sober. I don't really have any desire to get into that anymore.
If the board chooses to terminate your probation, what, if anything, about the way you live or practice would change?
Um, I don't think my day-to-day life would change. I can't think of anything that would change. I would still go to my AA meetings. I would still go to therapy. Um, you know, I still wouldn't drink. That wouldn't be a part of my life. Still go to work. That would so the day-to-day life really wouldn't change.
Great. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the board today?
Um, I can't think of anything. I can always find words to say, but I really want to be mindful of people's time.
Sure. Thank you. Well, that concludes my questions.
All right, Mr. Arthur, any questions?
Yes, please, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Knapp.
Good morning.
Is your employer, the Veterans Health Administration, aware of your criminal conviction?
Yes, that was a part of the probation. It was mandated that I let my supervisor as well as the head of HR know. So they are both aware, and they were sent a copy of the paperwork.
In your petition, you state that the circumstances of your criminal conviction involved your use of alcohol to cope with an unbearable situation. How do you manage stress now to ensure that you don't use alcohol?
I mean, breathing exercises, walking exercises, gratitude, but I also find other ways to have fun. It's at the risk of sounding frivolous. Um, uh, fun back in 2022 used to be a frivolous endeavor for me. And that is not what serious adults do. And I've come to find there is a value in joy now. And so I found other sober ways to have fun, which is in many ways a stress relief for me. Sometimes that's exercise, but that is, I wish I could say I did that all the time, but I don't. It's usually playing video games, but it is a better way to have fun. It's something I can involve my kids with, and it's something that is authentic to me that I can sit there and look forward to when I get home from work or do on the weekends. So, yes, breathing, taking a break, checking in with my therapist, venting to my friends, so having all of this support systems, a therapist, having venues to have fun, sober fun, which is actually was also a pretty big part of my recovery. So having these different mechanisms in place is something that's and taking them seriously. Fun is serious, and so taking these seriously, I think are different efforts and safeguards to make sure I don't do that again.
In your petition and during your testimony too, you alluded to the fact that your criminal convictions, the circumstances of it, were associated with your response to a romantic relationship that you were in at the time. Is that fair?
My marriage, yes.
Are you in a romantic relationship now?
Yes, I'm in a romantic relationship now that is stable and a positive experience for me.
Thank you. And you were kind of anticipating my next and final question. How do you manage any stress that's associated with your current romantic relationship?
Well, fortunately, I am in a relationship with someone who talks things out and does try to problem solve. So, I think any relationship will have its disagreements, but it never quite gets to that level that it used to be. And we talk it out like I think any healthy couple would.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to now ask our board members if they have any questions. So if you would just unmute yourself and state your name before you ask the question, that will help our court reporter identify which board member is asking the question. And I think that we'll go ahead and just please start with our chair, Ms. Strack, if you could unmute yourself and say if you have any questions, and then we'll just go from there if anybody would like to ask a question.
Okay, thank you, Judge. I'll ask some questions, and then I think we'll just go from my right to the left. So thank you for being here, Ms. Knapp. I have a couple of questions. To you, it sounds like you plan to maintain your sobriety after probation. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. In talking about what your plan is for when life inevitably gets tough and kind of overwhelming, you talked a lot about ways to have fun, which is part of it. But in those moments where things are really, really tough, do you have a plan in place? If you're tempted to drink, you're feeling overwhelmed, what is your plan for those moments?
Sure. So I have actually talked about my recovery with family members. That was very difficult for me, but fortunately I have cousins who have gone through a similar process. I really wouldn't say they are a sponsor in that case, but I do have family members and cousins to reach out to talk about having that urge to drink. And because we have other family members who've gone through something similar, they're familiar with what to do.
Okay. I think that's it for me right now. Mr. Huft.
Justin Huft, LMFT. Thank you for being here, Ms. Knapp. No further questions.
Ms. Bailey.
Good morning, Lorez Bailey. Ms. Knapp, I have a question for you. You've talked about how a lot of this is based out of, the relationship that you're in and the stressors. But can you talk a little bit about your relationship with alcohol, just historically or through your life, even prior to even getting married? Because I think that was a 10-year relationship.
So that was actually much longer. At that point, it was probably about a almost 15-year relationship. And he left right about the time of the incident. So I think prior, and I'm just thinking in my 20s, it was really just a once in a while thing. And through much of my adult life, it was just something I would do either on the weekends or on Friday. And I had kind of a rule, no more than 2 or 3. And of course, as I got older, that number went down. But probably um the drinking got worse as the situation got worse, definitely increased. And the frequency increased in terms of it was no longer just a Friday wind down. It became more and more often. I just want to make sure I'm answering your questions, but for most of my adult life, it was just something to do on a Friday evening or Saturday evening. And that was it.
Thank you. No further questions.
Dr. Walker?
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to both Ms. Knapp and her attorney, Ms. Duchesne. Dr. Annette Walker here. I'm a public board member. And Ms. Knapp, I just want to say that I do appreciate your testimony this morning, especially how it aligns with Exhibit 1A that was shared with the board, how your insights gained through therapy have resulted in your behavioral change. And given what you have said today has elaborated on that, so I really wanted to reiterate that. And I also too appreciate how you mentioned your consistent boundaries and protecting yourself and others and looking at your social network and how that has helped your behavioral change for the better and reshaping your relationship with alcohol. What I wanted to ask you is if you could tell me a little bit more about what you mean when seeking this petition for early termination, the proactive accountability. I believe those were the words that you use. Can you just, tell me a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah. So, this is kind of my way of going back to the board to really just sprawl out what I've done, rather than seeing probation as checking a box and letting the clock run out. This is really a chance, I think, for me to really come back and talk about what I've done since. And for me, that's I see that as an exercise of accountability to have people question and go through kind of a rigorous review on what I've done since. And I think that was just more of an more active, proactive exercise of accountability. That's kind of how I see it. To publicly have lay out what I've done during my time in probation.
Are you also saying that you mentioned several times your intent or you were demonstrating how you've gone over and beyond the probationary guidelines and that was laid out for you? Was it your intent in that accountability and being proactive to point that out to us as well? I'm just trying to piece it together here. Because you mentioned several times you've gone over and beyond what was required.
So is my efforts to go above and beyond what was laid out for me in probation, is that another exercise of proactive accountability?
Correct. That's what I'm asking.
Okay. Yeah. Yes and no. I think I just found them helpful, and so I went above and beyond. But yes, going to more AA meetings, especially when times got kind of difficult for me and I didn't have anyone to in the beginning is really what I'm thinking about. Yes, definitely going to more AA meetings was definitely an exercise of accountability for me. And yeah, yes.
Yeah. I hope I'm in line in saying this, but you've shared the death of your mom earlier this year. So my condolences on, on my part for that to you. And again, I think that shares a lot about how you've put into action the behavior changes and work that you've done to go through that and still remain sober and things like that. So I just wanted to let you know that I hear you and I see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Jones.
Hi, Chris Jones, LEP member. Thank you for being here. I don't have a question quite yet. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have one. I'm gonna let my esteemed colleagues go before me, as I'm still kind of letting mine percolate.
John Sovek, LMFT. Thank you for coming and sharing so honestly about your experience with us. Following up on Board Member Bailey's question, I am curious also about your historic use of alcohol or substances prior to this initiating experience of being in the relationship. Is it something that's been part of you? Is it part of a family story? What is your relationship with alcohol and substances historically?
So it would strictly be alcohol. I've never done any other kind of substances ever. Um, and then, I that's a very broad question, and I don't want to bore you with 100 details, but so I'm trying to be as concise as possible and address your question at the same time. Um, for So I didn't have alcoholic parents. In fact, there was no alcohol in the house, which I didn't really think much about until actually this incident. Did I remember now? We had no alcohol at all in the house ever. It was just absent, and I didn't notice that absence. So there was that. And I did not drink, you know, for, I didn't really drink in college because I was busy. I was too busy, working and going to college, and the same can really be said through, while I was working. Probably wasn't even until my mid-20s did I really, drink. And that was again just a weekend thing. And so it was on the weekends, 3 drinks. That was it, from my 20s to my 30s, because after that I don't feel good. So that was just my rule. And it was probably starting about, maybe 2 years, 1 year prior, 1 year, 1 year. Did I really, start to drink on a more frequent basis. That was a very slow creep that I didn't really notice until it was really too late.
Thank you. And then in your personal statement, where did I have it here somewhere? Oh, there it is. You have a line you use that I suffered from a chronic issue of taking on everything and ignoring how it affected me. As I listen to your statements today and I read through all of the stuff you've supplied to us, you take on a lot. And I just want to offer what I think sounds like a potential scenario in the rhythm of your life that you shared with us. So let's say you do have a full day of work, and you get a call from your daughter's school. They need you to come in and take care of something. You have to get your other kids to practice. There's a report at work due tomorrow. I know you mentioned you hope to supervise after probation is done. The supervisor left a message and they need you to call them back. And you have an AA meeting scheduled that evening where you have promised to bring someone in a cake to celebrate their anniversary. This, from what you've said, sounds like a typical day for you. How do you handle that moment and how do you prioritize in that experience?
Sure. So that's a great question, and I'll try to kind of talk through that. Um, Sorry. trying to get chaos and make it linear. Um, so if something happens and they overlap, yes, in 2022, I would have taken everything. Um, the last 4 years has really been an exercise of working now so I don't have to work as much later. So, this includes taking care of, having my brother set up, with Down syndrome. So, he's taken care of. My kids are older now, but also I've set up kind of a schedule for them where and plans for them to be addressed and have their needs be met, whether I'm in the area or not, mostly relying on family. So question is, what should happen if it's just the trifecta of everything blowing up at once? I really have to do what I've been doing is to basically sit there and prioritize what's the most important immediate thing to do right now. Maybe it's, taking someone to the emergency room, but also part of it is also learning how and becoming comfortable with disappointing people when I don't want to. So maybe that does mean having to call, whoever is going on at a meeting and say, I'm sorry, I have so much going on. I can't do this. And then having to take that off my plate and put it on a shelf for later. Um, that's something I've had to practice a lot over the last years because there was well, I did have a lot on my plate. There was definitely more that could have been on my plate, and I had to learn to say no. Literally cannot do that. So, kind of a mix of learning to reprioritize, also learning to reach out to local family to help if they're available, which I've done fairly recently, actually. And also just learning to become comfortable with the discomfort of disappointing people, which unfortunately I've had to do as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. And then one final question. You had mentioned that in your previous relationship with alcohol, it had been mostly social, and then unknown to you, it had started to creep towards something a little bit more serious.
Yes.
How do you manage that idea that it may creep towards something again?
I think the kernel is gone, meaning that it's not even really a part of my life socially, so I can't really come up with excuses why to get back into it. So it so it would mostly start with I would, maybe meet with somebody and then we would have a couple of drinks and then go home. And usually that would just be on the weekend. But then it ended up, you know, being just social drinking with someone coming to my house or something, or drinking with my ex-husband. Just a drink, one or two drinks, and then I would go to my room and, maybe have a few more drinks. So it kind of creeped that way in a, very benign, not benign, very mundane way. Um, and it was mostly social for me usually. It probably started to become me drinking alone um much later, but I think reaching out to my cousins if I feel like I'm drinking alone or if I want to drink alone, as well as sort of knocking out all of the social drinking, which everybody in my life understands I don't do. So I think that two-part thing, no social drinking, not even an open door, not even cracking open the window, that's a part of my life which could seep into, sort of very, very unhealthy alone drinking. And if that comes into place, reaching out to my friends, reaching out to my family, that's those are my plans should that happen again.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to bounce back to Mr. Jones for a moment. We're going to do Chris, and then we'll come back to you.
Hi, thanks, Susan, for letting me cut in line. I like listening to Mr. Sovek because sometimes it helps me organize my own chaotic thoughts. So I really appreciated your phrase of trying to make your chaos linear, because that's kind of where I live many times. So I appreciate that. I do have a couple of questions, and first, I do want to thank you for being here and sharing your your story and your journey with us. one of the themes that I picked up from, your testimony is the concept of going kind of above and beyond, right? And then as I was reading through your packet, it's probably one of the most extensive packets that I've seen in the 6 years that I've been on the board. And so and again, this line of thought, my own chaos, really is going to come down to consumer protection. So when we talk about people that have substance abuse issues, or how their coping mechanisms, may impact their world, and inform your practice, right? We have to look at regulation, at how you regulate yourself in order to be able to be present for your clients, for your family. Obviously, family's always first, right? So I guess I'm curious as to, with regards to the packet, I understand and see, and you caught my attention because I'm the LEP on the board, and you put an IEP in there, and we don't have IEPs in these things very often, in 504 plans. So it truly caught my, and then there was the IEE request that you put in there too. And so, I speak that language. I understand that, that's probably a way of trying to show us that you're trying to take care of your family. But then as I'm listening to your testimony and I'm reading through your packet, I'm looking at another tidal wave of almost dysregulated like behavior. You threw everything at us, and that's it was above and beyond. It was above and beyond. So I guess my question, as I'm getting to, and I apologize for the long-windedness, is you on one hand you talk about setting boundaries and helping yourself regulate, having a support system. But on the other hand, you're also, throwing everything at us and then, talking about how you are above and beyond. And so to kind of, Mr. Sovek's point, is that sustainable? And how is it that you're going to help yourself regulate in order to both manage your own self-care, manage your family, your kids, obviously, like I said, they're the most important, and then also the clients, because our job is to make sure that, that you're safe to practice, with the consumers of California. So it kind of gives me a little bit of pause. So I'm curious as to how you are going to move forward from that perspective.
So if I can just summarize, because I want to make sure that I'm answering your question. There are concerns with my packet because I put a lot in there to give you a full picture of all that's going on with my life. And I think each exhibit was trying to deliver a different message. And really, I think trying to look, sort of what would be the best kind of whole picture of what's going on in my life. And I guess the question back to me is, looking at your whole life, is this momentum sustainable? Am I kind of getting, I just want to make sure I'm not going east when you want me to go west. So I understand the question. All of that is stuff I've done and that I'm proud of. My middle got her 504. My youngest got her is getting her IEP, her services, and it's documented that she's, social and well adjusted. I think in 2020, you're correct in that I do go hard on things, but this packet, I will say, was a very top priority because I highly value my license. And so this was definitely a top priority for me to make sure that I really just deliver everything possible to get the full picture of where I'm at now and where my family is at now. I think as far as being able to sustain it in momentum, I'm actually in a very quiet lull in my life. I don't have to, handle my mom's affairs anymore because I worked so hard to make sure it was in a place of maintenance. My brother's benefits are fine. My daughters are getting their needs met, educational, speech, emotional, all of that. And that's a system that I built and that is now in the maintenance phase. Mr. Arthur asked about my relationship. That is very much in a maintenance phase. I am, checking in daily and it's almost boring. So to answer your question, a lot of these were systems and plans and services that I worked hard to put in place. And so I'm happy to see that, the hard work that actually goes into IEPs and requesting an IEE and advocating hard for your kids. But those were startup phases. And so I would say now a lot of the stuff is now in a maintenance phase. And the message I'm hoping to give is this is where I'm at now. I'm in the maintenance phase. I've worked really hard to build it, and now it's being well maintained.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Susan.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. I'm Susan Friedman, a public member, and I want to follow up on Mr. Sofek and Chris's question. I know you have 3 daughters, and they're teenagers now, or maybe even a little bit older than teenagers.
2 teenagers, one who's 8.
Anyway, if there's ever a time, and I know this from personal experience, that can be stressful, it's having girls as teenagers. And you can't predict it. It could be perfect one day, and the next day it can be chaos beyond belief. So I'm just wondering, because you'll be alone in your house, I mean, is this something that you've faced or that you think about you may have to face, or that you just have faced it already and know how to deal with it?
So my 2 oldest daughters are 15 and 13, and I can confidently say that yes, I'm familiar with what you're talking about. And I mean, this has already been a thing for a while. And I guess the question is, how do I handle it? I think in the beginning, I think I tried to play referee and mediator for each and every fight. And it is exhausting because we're having an hour-long conversation about who took whose scrunchie. So that was definitely a place where I had to step back and let them figure this out, let them practice their own conflict resolution. And if it gets too much, then I will step in. But that was definitely a good place where I had to have boundaries and not try to come in, save the day, and solve their problems for them. And as far as, so those are between those 2. And as far as fighting with me, I suppose I'm lucky that it could be worse. But they, usually I have pretty good kids. They don't like it when I tell them to do their chores or study and whatever, but and they'll mouth off when they mouth off. But we haven't had anything, I think, above mouthing off. So I suppose I'm lucky in that way. Should that happen, I suppose that is a good time to just sort of take a break, which I have done. Like, I'm ending this conversation now and I'm going to walk away. And when we're both in a better place, maybe we'll talk about this. But that's usually kind of where things land if it gets too contentious with my daughters.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. So a few questions. The first one is, if your petition was granted today, what would your plans be as far as the services that you're currently involved with? I know you mentioned continuing with therapy and AA, but I'm looking more like quantitative, like how, give me numbers, like, are you still planning to go 4 to 6 times to AA groups? You know, and maybe there, I know you said therapy, but give me kind of a glimpse of what that could look like.
So usually I would go in the morning, and I plan to continue to go in the morning about 4 a week. So probably one to start off my week, one kind of usually midweek, or like two, usually one and one after in the afternoon. So 4 a week is my plan. Therapy, I currently go once a month, and I plan to do that more if I become particularly stressed out, which I've done. You know, if I'm really stuck on something.
Okay, so I'm assuming, is this before work?
7, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then you'd mentioned that you, I mean, just hearing it, it does sound like you have a full plate. So with your, let me see, you mentioned something about being, basically, you said originally when this all happened, there was like an unbearable situation. So I'm assuming there was, what does that mean? Unbearable situation is, how will you know when you're in another unbearable situation? Or how can you avoid that?
So I am now much more vigilant when I feel like I'm doing more than the other person. And I don't know if I necessarily want to get into the details of what's unbearable, but maybe some preventative measures to make sure it doesn't get to that place again. But I definitely am very vigilant about when I feel like I am compromising some core values or beliefs, like, you know, like my family or like my time, or if I have to give up something that's really important to me, like either it can be a leisure activity or a hobby or seeing cousins or family or my aunt. You know, if I find myself being asked to either give those up or to do that less, because it's never you must give this up. It's, do you have to see them so often? You know, do you have to go to AE meetings that much? Do you need to, you know, it's, and then it slowly creeps down. Rather than waiting till it's basically down to a nub, I'm very vigilant now to make sure that as soon as that starts to erode my support systems, things that give me joy, things that are important to me, to stop and to question and to push back.
Okay. And you'd also mentioned something about your family, that I think you said something about they know what to do. Let me see, you said basically that you use your family. What does that mean, that they know what to do?
So, you know, I think that was kind of related to sort of my drinking. You know, I had a conversation, and you know, if I find myself that I need to drink, I give them a call. You know, and we kind of have I so I text them kind of like a code before I call, meaning that it's really important. Please pick up the phone, as opposed to I'm just calling because I really want to coordinate whatever game night with you or something. So, so we kind of have a thing where they know like it's time for them to sort of step out and talk to me, as opposed to this is a social call. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember right now, but do you have a sponsor?
I don't. So, much of the internal work has been I was for my therapist, and my AA meetings was more for accountability and to decrease my isolation is where AA meetings were most valuable for me.
Mhm. So does that mean you don't plan to get a sponsor?
That's not something that really spoke to me or I found valuable to my own recovery journey.
Okay. And then so it sounds like you got a lot of work during the week and you got kids in school. What does like Friday weekends look like, or when you're not working?
So recently I've been really into Baldur's Gate 3. That is a nerdy Dungeons and Dragons meeting. So that's something that I've been enjoying over the weekend, but I told myself I can only do it like maybe once a week because that can really take over your day. So once a week, and I have to give myself a time to play that game. But also it is catching up with housework, but also maybe enjoying cooking a meal. Sometimes my girls really like to make box cake. And so that's fun. And then, the disaster that follows afterwards. Sometimes it's, going on a date. Usually we like to go either to a museum or an art festival around there. Recently we've been looking at, I've been looking at different, trails we can go on, though I'm really not a hiker, but I really, really like redwoods. So something easy that I can go look at the redwoods around here. So not to give you a laundry list, but definitely new avenues to try to enjoy life. But alcohol is definitely not a part of any of that.
Mhm. So I'm curious, do you have, like, if you wanted, do you have alone time?
Yes, I have to sort of tell my girls, and this is kind of stemming back a little bit to sort of my exercise and in boundaries. Hey, can you guys just give me an hour? Go ahead, just jump on the screen time. This is your chance. This is your moment. Watch all the dumb cartoons in the world. Just give me a moment to take a nap, read a book. Um, those are kind of my alone time. Sometimes when I just come home from work, sometimes on the weekends, I'll do my own skincare, nails, hair. That's also my alone time. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
sure.
Thank you for your testimony and for being here today. This is Rebecca Thies. I'm a public member. I'm following up on my colleagues' questions about your historic relationship with alcohol and how you've spoken about the people in your life now versus the people in your life many years ago. Alcohol at social events is not always avoidable. And you talked about how you now surround yourself with a sober group of friends, sober family. You may have found yourself during your period of sobriety at a wedding or a birthday party or a retirement party with alcohol. Have those occasions been difficult for you? How have you approached them? How have you faced them? And if you haven't faced them, have you thought about how you might in the future?
I faced them. I just didn't give it a second thought. I wish I had a more dramatic story to tell about that, but I saw it, acknowledged it, and then went to the cake. I didn't really think too terribly much about it. Um, like there was no triggers, no cravings, nothing, no nostalgia, nothing like that.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Go ahead, Justin.
Justin Huft, LMFT. Thank you again, Ms. Knapp. I just want to follow up on board members Sovic and Jones' comments about what was included in the packet, particularly board member Jones's discussion about the tidal wave of information. I'm not sure I got a clear idea from you of what was included and why. And not every person who comes before the board will choose to have legal representation. So can you give the board an idea of what exactly you were advised to include in this packet and what you chose to include?
Okay, so we don't want to ask Ms. Knapp to disclose attorney-client privilege communication. So any discussions she has with her attorney are private. So if we could just ask Ms. Knapp, what was the thought process for why you included what you did? Would that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Ms.
Okay.
Knapp, what was the thought process for including what you did?
I think I wanted just to make sure the board was aware about how basically I wanted the board to be aware about how my girls are fine, they are thriving, their needs are being met under my care. I wanted to make sure that the board was aware that my sobriety is stress tested. So, when questions come up around, what if I'm stressed out again? What if I'm, angry? What if things just pile up? I have a history to show them that my sobriety is stress tested. And it's more than just, don't take my word for it. Let me show you when I say that my sobriety is stress tested. So those I think were two main things. It's when I talk about, bringing up, having to work with my mom's estate and working as she was declining, did all that sober. So I really wanted the board to feel confident that not only is my sobriety stress tested and don't just take my word for it, let me show you with the evidence. But also, the girls are thriving and they're under my care. And so I can be trusted with a vulnerable population that not only are they, okay, but they are thriving and their needs are being met. That's probably the two big things I really wanted to make sure that the board was understood.
Understood. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Sovic.
John Sovak, LMFT, returning with a follow-up question for you, Ms. Knapp. I realized in looking through this very thorough packet and also kind of reviewing your testimony that you've shared today, I understand that you attend a lot of AA meetings. I'm curious about your participation and use of the program. I was reflecting back on some language. If I was feeling overwhelmed or going through something, I would call family or friend. Once again, you've identified using a sponsor as not part of your path, and I understand that each person's use of this program is their own individual way. But a lot of times, someone who's deeply imbued in the program will say, I will talk to someone from program. If I'm feeling triggered, I will reach out to my sponsor. I also I haven't heard any talk or seen anything or evidence about, I did some step work and it was really, took me to a deeper place, whether you did that personally or with your therapist. So I'm really curious about your use of the AA program. Like, what is your personal connection? What is it doing for you?
Sure. So a lot of the internal work I mostly did with my therapist. That was just something that I felt more comfortable with. So when it came to going through the steps and just sort of saying, and that was the whole, giving up power or giving it up to a higher power was something that was really big for me as for someone who really felt like they had to save the day everywhere. So, the steps for the AA meetings for me was really about accountability. So, making sure that I did everything that I needed to do for to make sure that things did not get as bad as they used to be. And sometimes I get worried that I miss the small signs, miss the small signs. And it is also a place, especially in the beginning, where I had a lot of shame. AA meetings were really the first place where I wasn't really talking that much, to be honest, in the beginning, but was a place I could at least be with other people. And it was a place, especially in the beginning, where when Friday nights were a thing, I couldn't do my Friday night wine anymore, that's done. We're not doing that anymore. So I understand what you're saying. Was I a part of the STEPS program? Partially, it really wasn't something for me entirely, but the value of the AA meetings for me was really about accountability, honestly, cheerleading. You know, I don't talk about my recovery very much with people in my social life other than I don't drink, but when I say, hey, it's been a year, it's been 2 years, it's been 3 years, you know, it was good to have a community in my corner cheering for me. And it was good to have people, you know, kind of be there in a room full of people where I could sort of talk about things I was very shameful about and kind of deal with that moral injury. So AA meeting really had a lot of value for me in that I had a community, though the steps were and the internal work was really done with my therapist, and that was just the tailored journey that worked best for me.
If you and I went to a meeting this evening, would you be or a participant, more a listener? Are you a sponsor for other people? Have you taken on any of the administrative roles? What are some of the other aspects of your program? If you feel comfortable sharing those with us.
I would, I would probably talk. I would probably talk. I don't really know kind of what I would say if you and I went to a meeting, but yeah, it's usually check-ins are good for me.
And have you taken any active administrative roles in your program?
No, I have too much. The whole don't take on too much, that was definitely in the I can't take this on plate.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
I have one more question, if it's okay. Sorry? Okay. I was curious, real quick, you had mentioned your brother that has, anyway, your brother, does he live in your home?
No, he lives in a group home.
Okay. And as far as resource, are you able to, do you have external resources for the kids? I know you mentioned two that have special needs that you're using on your own time.
So yes, I have reached out to the school to get resources for them and accommodations. And also my middle gets some her mental health, their needs are being met.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions from board members, Judge, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. All right. Anything further, Mr. Arthur?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Anything further, Ms. Duchesne, with regards to questions?
No further questions.
All right. Then we will proceed with closing remarks because petitioner has the burden of proof. Any closing remarks, Ms. Duchesne?
Just a few closing remarks. I just want to start by thanking the board for their insightful questions and also my client for answering so candidly this morning. Regarding going above and beyond, and I think one of the members stated that we threw everything at them. I don't want my client to be penalized for that. Really, we're looking at this petition under kind of a microscopic lens right now. And it's important to remember that these things didn't happen in just an isolated short period of time. It's a history. We're looking at 4 years of efforts, and 4 years, I mean, that's a presidential term. So a lot can happen in 4 years. And I think if anything, my client's demonstrated that despite the obstacles, she has managed to juggle everything and set these boundaries. And the question of, okay, how is she going to regulate? Again, she's been doing that for 4 years now. She's continuing AA, and her remarks that, okay, if her petition is granted, what would change tomorrow? And the answer is nothing. She's done a really excellent job of building these structures and creating a solid foundation to bring her the stability that she's reached now. And so turning on the purpose of probation, it is to protect the public, and Ms. Knapp has not shown anything that she is continuing to be a danger to the public. She voluntarily entered into these programs and therapy, and she exceeded her terms. And her reason for exceeding is twofold. She mentioned she wanted to be proactive and show accountability and demonstrate that to the board, but more importantly, she's received the help as intended from these programs. And that's the main takeaway from this petition, is to show that these efforts are not without good merit, and that she's going to enforce these throughout the rest of her professional career and her personal life. And those were my final comments.
Any closing remarks, Mr. Arthur?
No, thank you.
All right, is the matter submitted, Mr. Arthur, now for the board's consideration?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Duchesne, matter submitted?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, the matter is submitted and the record is closed. We are off the record. All right, Mr. Peters, before I allow the parties to go, do you have any spellings that you need?
Let me check real quick. I don't think so, but no, I think I'm okay right now.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Ms. Duchesne, Ms. Knapp, Mr. Arthur, you are free to go unless Mr. Arthur is staying for the remaining petitions.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate it. Thank you to the board.
Mr. Peters, I
And
need
Your
an
Honor-
end time. Hold on just a
sorry.
second. I need an end time and a page count, Mr. Peters.
End time 10:20. Page count 60.
Perfect. All right. I will turn it back to our chair.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry for the interruption. We're going to take a 15-minute break on our end before we begin the next petitioner. So it's 10:21 now. Judge, unless there's anything you need to do before we take a break, we'll be back at 10:36. All right, we are back in session. And we're ready to move on to the next petitioner. And Judge, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Lyons, I see that you are with us. If you could unmute yourself and turn your camera on. This is Judge Larson.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Judge?
I can. Let me see if I can see you. I lost you. I don't see where. There you go. Oh, there you are. Okay, excellent. All right, we're going to get started here in just a moment. But Mr. Lyons, I want to make sure that you have access to the petition package before we get started. There may be some questions about that, and I'm certainly going to have Mr. Arthur identify that and move it into evidence. So I want to make sure that you've reviewed it, because I will be asking you if you have any objections to it.
Yes, I do have it, Judge.
Excellent. All right, we have a court reporter here, Mr. Peters. So just a moment, we're going to go on the record. I will announce the case. I will have the parties announce themselves, and I will briefly explain how the hearing is going to proceed. And then if anyone has any questions, you can ask me at that time. All right? Yes. All right, Mr. Peters, just let me know when you are ready.
I'm ready, Your Honor.
All right, on the record. Good morning. We are on the record. It is August 13th, 2026. It's 10:39 a.m. We are before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California, in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation by Keith Eugene Lyons. This is case number 202-02-1002673. OAH case number 2026-071090. My name is Marcy Larson. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and we previously established a quorum in this matter. Will counsel for the people please state your appearance for the record?
Good morning, Philip Arthur from the Attorney General's Office.
Right, and Mr. Lyons, you are here today present representing yourself. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And if our court reporter would please state his name and CSR number for the record.
My name is James Peters, and my license number is 10,063.
All right. So, Mr. Lyons, I want to make sure that you understand that you could have had an attorney represent you at your own expense. You are aware of that?
I am.
And you are choosing to proceed on your own behalf. Is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
All right. So we are here today, Mr. Lyons, because you have filed a petition with the board seeking early termination of your probation. You have the burden of proving that your probation should be terminated early. The way that the hearing will proceed is that Mr. Arthur, who represents the people of the state of California in this matter, will provide a brief overview of the history of discipline of your license. He will then address the petition documents. And before we went on the record, I asked you if you had reviewed those documents, because I will be asking you if you have any objection to any of those documents. After Mr. Arthur has given the board an overview of the history of discipline and addressed the exhibits, I will then swear you in, and then you may provide the board any testimony you want them to consider for purposes of making a decision about whether or not your petition should be granted. Please understand, of course, they have the benefit of having reviewed your petition package and supporting documents. If there's something in particular in those documents you want to highlight, you can certainly do so. It's important to also remember that the board is primarily focused on wanting to hear about your rehabilitation efforts since the discipline of your license, and also why you are seeking early termination of your probation. During this proceeding, I cannot give any legal advice, but if anyone has any questions about the procedures, please ask me, and if I can answer it, I will. Mr. Lyons, after you're done testifying on your own behalf, I will ask Mr. Arthur if he has any questions for you. If you have any objection to any of the questions he asked of you, please just tell me you have an objection to a question, and meaning that you don't want to answer that question. I'll decide whether or not if you're required to answer the question, but just please let me know if you have an objection. After Mr. Arthur questions you, I will ask our board members if they have any questions for you. And the same rules apply. If you have any objection to any question they ask of you, just please tell me. After the board members ask you questions, I will ask you one more time if there's anything else you want to add to your testimony. I make sure that you get the last word since the burden is on you in this matter. I will then ask Mr. Arthur and ask you if you have any closing remarks that you want to give to the board. The matter will then be submitted for the board's consideration, and later on today, the board will be going into closed session to deliberate. So you will not receive a decision today. You will receive a decision sometime in the future. And that, of course, will be a written decision. All right, I know this is a lot of information. Any questions for me before we get started?
No, Your Honor, I understand.
All right, Mr. Arthur, any questions for me?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, please provide a brief history of the discipline in this matter.
I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General in accordance with Government Code Section 11522. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. In this case, Mr. Lyons became a licensed clinical social worker on October 29, 2019. Effective July 27, 2023, his license was placed on 5 years probation via a stipulated settlement, which was based on an accusation that alleged that on October 20th, 2021, Mr. Lyons was convicted of violating Penal Code Section 273, Subdivision A, and Vehicle Code Section 23152, Subdivision A. Mr. Lyons has complied with all terms of his probation, and he is now seeking early termination of his probation. And if I could go through the petition packet, which is marked as Exhibit 1.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. Marked as Exhibit 1 is the petition packet. In Case Center, it begins on page master A1. And this petition packet consists of a memo from the board probation analyst summarizing Mr. Lyons' petition and his probation compliance. It includes a redacted copy of the petition, a personal statement from Mr. Lyons, an email from Headway denying Mr. Lyons' application with them, documents from Mr. Lyons' criminal case, a class schedule from the University of Arizona, a chart from Quantum Units Education showing continuing education classes that Mr. Lyons has completed. 2 documents showing Mr. Lyons' completion of the M as in Mary, A as in Apple, D as in dog, D as in dog online victim panel. A letter from the County of San Diego Health and Human Services Agency to Mr. Lyons and his wife, documenting closure of a referral for abuse and/or neglect of their children. An invoice from Positive Parenting Solutions. A certificate of completion from parentingchoice.com. 19 certificates of completion from Quantum Units Education. A chart showing continuing education Mr. Lyons has completed between August 8th, 2025 and January 20th, 2026. 2 character reference letters. A printout from the Anxious Mammal website. 4 email exchanges regarding Mr. Lyons' participation in speaking events. 5 work performance evaluations. A printout regarding Mr. Lyons' prescribed medications. A general psychiatry attending note dated January 21st, 2026. 8 letters from various therapists regarding Mr. Lyons' participation in therapy. 7 receipts from the Department of Consumer Affairs reflecting Mr. Lyons' payments made between September 18th of 2023 and July 10th of 2025. 40 printouts documenting Mr. Lyons' participation in Smart Recovery online meetings. A chart showing Mr. Lyons' attendance at AA meetings. A completed psychotherapy information sheet. A letter from Leanne Avila summarizing Mr. Knapp's attendance and performance in therapy. The final decision in case number 200, 2021, 002 673, placing Mr. Lyons' license on probation for 5 years, along with the accompanying stipulated settlement and underlying accusation. And finally, it consists of Mr. Lyons' license history certification and the notice for today's hearing. I move to submit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Right. Any objection to the documents that make up Exhibit 1, Mr. Lyons?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you. Because the burden is on Mr. Lyons, I have no further statement, but would reserve the right to question.
All right, Mr. Lyons, the first thing I need to do is swear you in. So if you would please unmute yourself, there you go, and raise your right hand. Do solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, please state and spell your name.
Keith Lyons, first name Keith, last name Lyons, Lyons. All
right, Mr. Lyons, just a few ground rules for you to follow while you're testifying. As you know, we have a court reporter here. His job is to take down everything that's being said verbatim, meaning word for word. So it's very helpful for him if you speak slowly and keep your voice up. Sometimes when we speak in a narrative, we can speed up how we talk, and so just be mindful of that. And as I mentioned, after you're done providing testimony, I will ask Mr. Arthur if he has any questions for you. And so just keep in mind that, again, that Mr. Peters is transcribing everything, so be mindful of just slowing your speech down a bit while you're testifying. All right?
Understood.
All right, you may begin.
So I wanted to start with just kind of an opening statement, just as a general appeal to the board. And then I figured I would leave it to questions after that, because instead of just kind of guessing what you need to hear, I just want to provide a few points that I think I should present, and then let you ask what it is that you think you need so that I can clarify why I'm asking for early termination. So I wrote down my thoughts so that I could actually do exactly what you asked, Judge, which is not speak too fast. I tend to do so when nervous. So I'm asking the board to consider terminating my probation early, not because I want to minimize what happened or because I believe completing the required terms is necessarily enough. I'm asking because I believe that the last 3 years have demonstrated through my actions and my professional record that I've learned from the experience, I've addressed the underlying issues that led to it, and I've established and sustained a pattern of safe, responsible, and accountable professional and personal behaviors. When this happened, I had learned some difficult things about myself. I had also been dealing with some difficult personal items as an explanation, not as an excuse. My younger brother had died by suicide, and I discovered later after this event that although I thought I had dealt with it, I had not. I also acknowledge that I had known at the time already that I was an alcoholic due to my genetics and my history. And I had had 12 years of sobriety and did not continue what I should have been continuing to maintain that sobriety, and therefore the events occurred. One of the most important was that I'm not someone who can engage in social or casual drinking, and I knew that, but I guess I forgot after it had been so long. I've also learned, alcohol is not something I can use appropriately in my life. I've tried and it did not work. That was apparently clear with this one-time use after 12 years where it just everything came to a head. Of course, I've made the decision to live my life accordingly after this. That understanding fundamentally changed how I approach my personal responsibilities and my professional responsibilities. I also learned that my personal life, it does not exist separately from my professional life, even though if it seems like the events were unrelated. Something that happens outside of work can still have consequences for my clients, for my coworkers, most importantly, for my family, and just the people who depend on me professionally and personally. I understand that now in a much more deeper way than I did before this experience. I did not simply complete my probation requirements. I completed them early, I remained compliant, and I've continued to work the probation required of me long after the individual requirements were completed. I started AA the day after the incident. I went to 90 meetings in 90 days. I've continued to stay in AA. I'm a sponsor I have 3 sponsees. I have a sponsor. I have for the last 3 years. I've completed the steps twice. I've remained actively involved in the AA community as a secretary for a meeting down the street here in North Park from the place that I work for the last 3 years. Like I said, I've worked the steps and I'll continue to work them again. I have maintained a sober support system. I have a sponsor I speak to weekly. I have a sober buddy that I meet with weekly for lunch to do sober check-ins. I've done this for the last 3 years, and this is not something that will stop. At the same time, I've continued to grow professionally. I work full-time as a manager at a community clinic serving underserved populations, where I oversee approximately 13 clinicians and psychiatrists as a manager. I was promoted into management shortly after this event, as the place that I work knows that this was not a typical occurrence. I've taken on responsibility for our substance use and our medically assisted treatment psychiatry program. I've also provided therapy on a sliding scale basis to people who are uninsured outside of my regular full-time job. Completed my PhD. I conduct corporate trainings on burnout, compassion, fatigue, and self-care. And I maintain a free mental health resource site called The Anxious Mammal. And that's for people both inside the practice that I work and those outside. Over the past 3 years, I've had no professional complaints or problems. Instead, I've received consistent positive feedback from my clients, staff, supervisors, and leadership. My supervisors and mental health leadership have been able to observe my conduct over an extended period of time, and they've continued to build their trust in me, increasing my level of responsibility, even assigning me 2 years ago to open up the largest clinic that they've ever opened. That's important to me because I understand that the question before the board is ultimately not whether I completed a checklist. It's whether I am safe to practice and I've demonstrated that I can be trusted with the responsibility that comes with being a mental health professional. I believe my conduct over the past 3 years, and really 5, because in about 2 months I hit my 6 years of sobriety. I also recognize that accountability does not end simply because probation ends. I fully intend to continue the practices that have helped me maintain stability and responsibility. I will always continue to go to AA for the rest of my life. It means I will always remain a sponsor and have sponsees because that is necessary for me to remember part of who I am. I always will be collaborating with my sober friends, my colleagues, regular communication with my staff and clients. Continuing education will always be a piece there, and continued personal growth. The experience has changed how I think about my future. Before this happened, I was focused primarily on moving forward professionally and continuing my education. Now I understand that professional growth has to be accompanied by personal accountability and an honest understanding of my own limitations. This less cryptically means ensuring that the awareness I have of the importance of self-care, especially in this field of work, is something that I need to apply as actions in my life, which is what is the foundation of why I continue to go to AA, because remaining sober is the most important thing before all else. Nothing else matters if I do not remain sober, because everything else will fall apart in hindsight of that. So probation has served an important purpose. It gave me structure, accountability. It got me back on track of where I had lost, many years before. And it was an opportunity for me to demonstrate that I can move forward responsibly and I can maintain that. And it can be not just simply me forcing behaviors for other people, but that I can actually maintain my integrity and my values consistently over a long period of time. I believe I have done that. I'm not asking the board to forget what happened. This is always going to remain, part of who I am. But I am asking the board to consider everything that's happened since, and to allow my current record, my continued accountability, my demonstrated rehabilitation to speak for where I'm at today and allow me to move forward from it. I want to continue growing as a clinician and as a leader, someone who can provide meaningful care to people who are dealing with significant trauma and adversity. And I believe I've demonstrated that I can do that safely and responsibly. So I'm respectfully asking the board to allow me to move forward without the remaining 2 years of probation, mainly because it's restricting me from gaining employment in other areas where I would like to grow, as I've presented evidence of being denied. And also, even at the job I'm at now, I don't have the opportunity to continue to grow because the limitations on my license don't allow me to supervise. And my mental health directors and the VP of the company really want me to be able to take on that role because they can see how beneficial and important I could be for this company in training other clinicians. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Mr. Arthur, any questions for Mr. Lyons?
Thank you. Yes, please. Hello, Mr. Lyons.
Hello, sir.
Can you please describe what you've learned since the discipline of your license that will assist you in not repeating the conduct described in the accusation?
Yes, part of it is that I've gained a little bit more of a solid understanding that I thought that when this first happened, to be completely honest, I was a little bit frustrated because I thought, well, this was outside of work and it had nothing to do with work. It wasn't during work time. It was on the weekend. It wasn't with clients. And through this, I can honestly tell you, I have understood that that was a little bit naive of me. And you can't work in the mental health field with individuals and working with their emotions and their mental stability if your life is not at least, somewhat together and in line. And when you have social, personal issues going on, because this caused issues with my marriage, with my relationship with my children, there was a lot there that I had to sort through and go to a lot of therapy, couples therapy and all that. And so I now understand very clearly that there are not two people. I am a professional, I am a non-professional, and those both are part of each of those different lives.
And so with that understanding, how will that understanding help you in not repeating the conduct that's described in the accusation?
The the new belief system is that since those two are not one, or since they are one and the same, my integrity has been strengthened across both sides. But the tangible response to that is it opened my eyes and got me back into AA. I used to be in AA years ago, and then I stopped going to meetings because I thought I was fine. And then that was the 12 years of sobriety, but 7 of those were without meetings. And so I slowly began a process of relapsing without actually drinking, but just behavior. I stopped having as good of integrity, and then that came to a head with the incident where I drank. So this was that final rock bottom straw that I needed to. There is no way for me to ever think that I can be sober without the support system. There's no way for me to rationalize it anymore like I was before. This was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's the worst thing I've ever done to anybody in my life, putting my kids in danger. I'll never forgive myself, and I will never think that I can do it on my own again.
And you may have in part kind of answered my next question, but what assurances can you offer to the board that similar misconduct will not be repeated?
I will always have a sponsor. I will always sponsor others. I will always go to meetings and run meetings, minimum of 2 to 3 meetings a week. I will always meet with my sober buddy until the day one of us is no longer living. And all of my family, my wife, my brother, or excuse me, my wife, my father-in-law, mother-in-law, my mom and dad, my brothers, my brother-in-laws, they all are fully aware of my history, that I am an alcoholic and that I am active in AA. And they check in with me regularly, and they know exactly what behaviors to look like. There's no pulling the wool over their eyes after this.
Your current employer is Family Health Centers, right?
Yes, sir.
Are they aware of your criminal convictions?
100%. They were informed after the event occurred. I actually met with HR. They actually worked with me to change some of their policies just in order to keep me on with the company, because their policy that they had set would not allow with what had happened. They changed those just so that they could maintain me on staff. And within 6 months, they promoted me to manager after this event.
Mr. Lyons, I'm just going to remind you that you have to give a brief pause before you answer Mr. Arthur's question. You're talking over him a bit.
Apologize.
It's hard to follow what you're exactly answering when he doesn't finish the question. All right.
Thank you for the reminder.
All right, Mr. Arthur, please continue.
And Mr. Lyons, I think you may have addressed this again earlier in your testimony, but in your testimony so far, and then also in your petition, you state that on the day of your arrest, you had been in recovery for 12 years, but relapsed. What's different about your recovery this time that will ensure you don't relapse again?
I'm glad you asked that question because it's an important one. I was not drinking at the time of the event, but I was not in recovery. I was not attending meetings. I was not talking to a sponsor. For the last 5 years, I just thought that I was no longer going to drink again, and I knew that, and I did not do any work for 5 years, and it slowly crept in and got me. The difference is I will never not go to meetings. I will never not have a sponsor. I will never not have a sponsee so that I can continue to get back. I will always be in AA. It's incredibly important to me. It's my wife, my kids, and then it's AA.
In your petition, you state that you've developed coping strategies to manage your impulsive behaviors. What are those coping strategies?
Yes. So to be completely honest, I do not have cravings for alcohol. I never have. I do struggle a little bit with ADHD, so there's some impulsivity there. And so what happened on that day is the impulsivity got me to think it would be a good idea. And then once I had a drink, then the alcoholism took over, and then I didn't stop. But the impulsivity is really what has gotten me kind of in a bind in this situation. So one of the things is I do take medication. I take a low dose of something called Lexapro, and it helps ease a little bit of the daily anxiety. And it also has, luckily, had a nice side effect of taking care of the impulsivity. I've been a lot more mellow and able to have time in between making decisions before I follow through with them. And I have what I like to say, I've set traps for myself. I have people who know that if I don't contact them or if I'm acting a certain way, they know to reach out to me and say what's going on. My friend that I meet with weekly, we meet because we call each other out on things that we're doing or not doing, and we keep each other accountable. And I have a sponsor that I can call and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking and doing. What do you think? And then I have a conversation. So I have things in between my thoughts and behaviors to slow down that process.
And you may have kind of already addressed this in your initial statement, but what led you to enroll in recovery initially 12 years ago?
Yes. So my family has struggled with addiction and alcoholism on my mom's side, my brothers. So I always knew it was in my family. And when I was younger, they kind of knew it was probably something I was dealing with because I would tend to go a little bit too far and fast as a, in my early 20s. And so I originally had gotten into AA, but I didn't really connect with it yet. I just wasn't ready to think that I needed it. I went back out, and then I ended up coming back again, and it set. And then for quite a few years, I was going to meetings, but then again, I started thinking that it was a lot of work, and I was like, I can just be sober. I get it now. I know what's going on. And then that's what led to this is I stopped doing the work and it got me. And I knew that it would, I just didn't want to admit it because it is a lot of work to practice sobriety the correct way.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, sir.
I'm now going to ask our board members if they have any questions, starting with our chair, please.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start from our left side. We'll start with Board Member Thies.
Good morning, Mr. Lyons. My name is Rebecca Thies. I'm a public member. Thank you so much for your testimony today. And Mr. Arthur covered all of my questions, so I have no further questions.
Good morning, this is Eleanor Uribe. Okay, so you've been in AA for a while. Is there a particular step that stands out to you?
Yeah, I've been going for quite a while. So yes, I had never gone through all the steps in the before this, honestly and thoroughly. I had gotten to step 4 previously and kind of fell off because it got very difficult having to kind of look inside and take ownership and accountability for things. I think that this time around, step 4 was the one that was difficult before, but that was actually the easy part. I actually found it interesting since I was welcoming it now to look into, say, like, okay, I am acknowledging that maybe I can't just do everything myself. So I liked actually getting to dig into that and then also following up with the therapist. But I'd say this time around, once I got towards the end with step 8 and 9 and having to like follow through with making some of those amends, that's where it got really difficult because I had to go tell people face to face things that were incredibly uncomfortable. And that's hard for me to do. I have a lot of pride, not in a way where it's problematic. I mean, I'm very humble, but like, I don't like having to be so vulnerable in front of people that I care about. And so that was difficult, especially with my wife.
Okay. Right, I'm sorry, you finished with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wanted to backtrack a little bit on I guess you said there was a relapse about 12, they said there was a relapse about 12 years ago, or you had a 12-year relapse. And when they asked about that, from what I understand, there was a history of DUI before, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So I had previously had a DUI before I was in this field. But as I said, I had struggled with, I've been an alcoholic my whole life, and I've struggled with it before this So that's why I had that 12-year sobriety that I acknowledged, because I had a reason to need to be sober. Before that, I had also struggled with alcoholism. And so that is something that I actually had to also work through, even when I was registering to work on my hours. But yeah, the 12-year sobriety was after a previous event before I was in mental health, where I had been pulled over for driving under the influence when I was visiting family in Oklahoma.
Okay, yeah. And let me see. I don't know if I have anything else right now. Oh, why did you originally go into, oh, no, I'm sorry. I think that's all for right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Lyons. I'm Susan Friedman, a public member. You said that you grew up in an alcoholic family. I mean, you were aware that alcoholism was in your family and that you likely inherited it, because science shows us that people inherit alcoholism. So you knew it was a problem that you had. And then you said you hated being vulnerable in front of certain people, particularly your wife, and I assume your children.
Yes.
Having them know this. Is there alcohol? Are there bottles of alcohol in your house right now?
No. Luckily, my wife is not someone that has ever struggled with that, and she's not a drinker, so we don't have any need to have alcohol in our home. My children are very young, so that's not yet a concern. So no, we never have alcohol in our house.
So the vulnerability that you mentioned is something that you feel not only with your wife and children, but with other people too, when you have to talk about what happened to you. But I assume that right now you're comfortable with it. This is part of who you are, and you're not ashamed of letting people know.
Not at all. To be completely frank with you, ma'am, I'm an amazing therapist, and it's because of the things that I've gone through in my life. And my clients can connect with me on a level that is unique, because when I tell them I understand, I truly understand a lot of what they've gone through, because I've gone through it myself. So it's a curse, but it's also a blessing, as long as I keep it in control like I have been, and I use it as such.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your answers.
Thank you.
John Sobek, LMFT. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing your experiences and your journey thus far. I do have a series of questions, and they're kind of from all different aspects of what you've shared with us. So I will try and gently transition from one to the other. I think I want to start with a curiosity about, in your submission documents, you have multiple therapists over the years. You have multiple diagnoses over the years. You have multiple medication use over the years. And I'm curious as to how you've landed where you've landed now, and how it's been concluded that that is actually the space that's going to keep you the healthiest moving forward.
I would ask the same question. I knew you were going to ask this, because that just makes sense. So to address the therapist, I had one. So it was hard for me to find a therapist. As a therapist, well, I mean, you're licensed too. I'm going to be picky, because I can tell if it's the right fit or not pretty quickly. So there were a couple that just were not qualified to work on the things I needed to qualify. So I had a couple that were associates, and they just didn't have the confidence that they needed to work with me. And then I had another one that ended up having to leave just because she stopped practicing. And then actually the one that I work with now, I had her, and then I left for somebody else and then came back to her. And the reason was that my marriage therapist said she knew somebody who was actually her supervisor. So she had a lot of confidence. She was very qualified. So I was like, great, please. And I connected with her. I worked with her for a while, but then my insurance changed, because I was on insurance at work, and then I'm now VA disability, because I'm a Navy veteran, so I got on VA disability and got a different insurance that she couldn't take. So I changed therapists with the VA, but then I was just, this isn't helping me move forward the way she was. So I ended up going back to her, and I actually pay out of pocket just to see her now because she's the right person for me, and I see her weekly. The medication, I had psych testing done, and then I had a couple different psychiatrists that just weren't sure. I had one that thought it was bipolar, which I felt was completely incorrect because it just didn't make sense for what I knew of my experience. And then they focused more moving on to like the ADHD, impulsivity, kind of energy level stuff. And that seemed to fit more, but they had to try a lot of different kinds of medications to see what would help a little bit with the anxiety that I was going through because my life was such a turmoil at the time, but also could help with the impulsivity, which was really the underlying issue with most of the events that occurred in my life that were negative.
And so using your own self-evaluation and the work with your therapist, would you say the diagnosis and the medication you're currently using is the sweet spot for you?
I think that this medication does what it needs to do. And so I think it is the correct medication. I do not know about the diagnosis, but then again, I have been known to be a stickler on that. And I believe that they have the symptoms correct, which is what is important for me. So I'm not necessarily worried if the diagnosis is right, if it's ADHD, if it's trauma, but I do think they've identified the symptoms and the symptoms are being addressed correctly.
Okay. And then kind of looking at this same theme, you have your reporting of your Smart Recovery attendance in 2021. Are you still part of Smart Recovery as well? Are you mixing that with your AA? Are you only using AA right now? What's your program currently?
Yeah, so I started with Smart Recovery in the beginning because one of the reasons why I was not following through with my AA stuff is because I started to not feel like I was buying into it again. I was starting to kind of rationalize against it. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll try Smart Recovery because I had known about that. I actually was a Smart Recovery certified person for a while and was teaching those classes. So I did that for a little bit, but then I had to go to AA as part of probation. And so once I started going to AA, I realized that now that I was open to, being more open-minded instead of trying to control everything, and I was actually truly ready to be like, okay, I've tried it my way and it's not working. I'm powerless. I give in. AA was just clicked and everything made sense. And I mean, I immediately became the treasurer or the leader of the meeting. I led a meeting close here by work for 3 years. Every week I was the one who led it. And I now secretary and treasurer in different things at different meetings because that one stopped and closed down. But I go to 2 to 3 meetings a week. Sometimes I'll jump online for one. Only AA. I don't do Smart anymore because AA is where I put 100%. And then again, I have a sponsor who lives nearby that I talk to at least weekly, and usually we meet once or twice a week or at a meeting. He gives me my chips at my birthdays. He's going to give me my one at my 6th year. And then I have what I call a sober buddy, which is an unofficial thing. He's just somebody I met in AA, and we make sure to schedule a lunch every week to meet up and kind of just call each other out very directly.
Okay. So to address my serious concern here is that we're looking at this kind of seeking energy between therapist, diagnosis, medications. Then we saw that same thing in program dependency support programs. You've been on your probation for 2 years now. Do you see how there might be some concern that this is still newbie, raw energy, and that there would be a concern for your professional work and public protection here?
I can understand your concern, but I disagree. I work with psychiatrists all the time. They'll try 10 meds in 6 months to try and find the right one. There's no reason to stay on the wrong one if it's not working. So the medications change until the right one works. And then the therapist, I can't control when they leave or when they're available or when they're not. I can't control my insurance when I have the ability to pay or not pay. So, I chose to switch therapists once. The others were because insurance, because of availability. And the psychiatrists are the ones that kept wanting to change the medication because they didn't think it worked. I can't tell the psychiatrist what meds to give me. I just said, this is what happened. This is what's going on with me. Can you help me? And then I just did I just trusted their professional guidance.
Would your self-evaluation be that you are a newbie in recovery or a
No.
deeply entrenched person in recovery?
Deeply entrenched. I've been in AA has been a part of my life since I was 19 years old. I just haven't stayed in the rooms when I should have. But I understand AA on a level that most people, well, people outside of it won't usually know. And people inside of it, I mean, there's plenty of people who know way more than me, but I understand it 100%.
Okay. So this connects to another one of my questions. So we're going to veer a little bit. And I do apologize to the board, but I do have a deep list here. So, and it goes actually with something you submitted, and it was one of your performance reviews. In 2025, you got this is page 109 in the packet. You got a performance review that said 3 meets expectations. Everything in general was really well written in there by your managers. You responded with basically a response to that felt that there were 3 wasn't appropriate, 3.5 was appropriate. So can you tell me a little bit more about that period? And then I have a follow-up question that goes with that.
Yes, of course. So that was a long discussion that I had with my manager. And that was because that was the year that we opened a new clinic. And I was responsible for opening an entire clinic that had a trauma department, a child and family department, and a multicultural refugee department. And so I had been working on opening this clinic for the last 3 years. And so I opened it, started running it. I also did multiple speaking events for the agency. So according to their own scoring matrix, I had exceeded the normal duties, which is what a 3.0 represents. And I don't think it's in there, but I even told my manager, I don't even care about the change in the increase of my raise. I just want the 3.5 because it's fair for what I gave the company. And this year they gave me a 3.5 because they realized that the matrix was not accurate for that. And I have emails from the VP that state that we're going to do some changes after your feedback.
So what this connects to me for is in signing a stipulation for probation, that's you making an agreement with the Board of Behavioral Sciences that you are going to follow these and you agree to them, the regulations that are put out there. And so 2 years later, you're coming with us for a reconsideration to remove you from that probation. So what comes up in my mind is you're asking us to trust your version, your self-evaluation. And I have a concern that maybe that self-evaluation ability may not be on at 100%. I would wonder what your thoughts and response would be to that comment.
Yes, sir. So it's been 3 years, not 2. I'm asking for 2 years early. And I'm not asking you to trust me. I've shown with my ability that my behaviors and things I've accomplished and everyone around me that has submitted their feedback that I'm asking you to trust what I've shown in 3 years. And that's only officially on probation. I've had years before that where I was dealing with this, obviously, because this was almost 6 years ago. And I'm not giving a self-evaluation. I'm saying, please look at what I've done and what everyone else around me is saying, including my VP and the mental health directors, and everyone around me is corroborating exactly what everyone else is saying, that I'm a highly valued employee. They have zero, my VP of mental health stated, I have absolutely zero concerns of his ability to safely provide for our vulnerable at-risk population. So I just want to say, like, it's been 3 years, not 2. And I don't know how long it takes to prove this, but I've been consistent. My integrity has been shown to be solid, and everyone around me, I have no one that would say any different than that. So it's not about what I've said. It's about what everyone else is saying in regards to the behaviors that I've shown.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Lyons, thank you for being here. Wendy Strack, Chair of the Board. I just have a couple of questions. I was looking at your one of your CE transcripts for quantum units education. For us, it's page 21 of the packet. Just wondering, I'm a public member of the board, so I'm not a licensed member. So I just need some clarification on it. It looks like when you are going in to take these CEs, there are multiple hour courses, but the exams are taken very close together. So for example, like on August 17th of 23, you tested for 32 hours of CE coursework all within a 1 hour, 60-minute period. So can you kind of just walk me through, just because I don't do this testing, so can you let me know how that's possible?
Yeah, of course. So some of those, this is not usually the case, but sometimes the coursework will kind of complete it in periods of time as we go along, and then I'll go back and do the tests when I have the time to sit down and make sure I can do them. But also some of those, I'll just be able to go through the exams because they're categories or topics that I'm already very familiar with because I work with them regularly. So I don't necessarily have to go through every single piece of the coursework before I'm able to take the exams.
Okay, so sometimes you're just going straight to the exam and not
I'll
doing
breeze through the content and I'll kind of stop where I feel like, oh, I don't know if I'm quite solid on that. And then I'll move through to the exams. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then another question. So I think, what's your reason for wanting to be off probation early? Is that financial or professional, personal?
So I'm not gonna lie and say it's not part financial. Obviously, it is. It's a heavy burden, and it's very limiting on my family. But and this does tie to it. I've tried to get positions to further my practice at a couple of places that actually have reached out and asked for me, because I get people that reach out through my website to hire me for speaking events and trainings for different therapists, especially in the field of trauma, because I specialize in complex PTSD and veterans. And I've gone through the process of going through all the hiring and everything with companies like Headway and Cerebral and things, and I've been denied once they get and they see like, we can't while you're actively on probation with BBS. Please contact us when you're not. So it's stopping me from being able to continue to grow in my profession and my income. What was the other thing? There was another thing I was going to mention. I kind of forgot, but it'll come to me. But the main one is because I'm trying to continue to grow, and I've been had to be kind of stagnant in those areas because of it.
Okay. And then my last question, I think you've talked a lot about this, but is there anything you haven't already said about sort of the way that things are different now than they were before the relapse? So you were in AA before, you thought you could kind of white knuckle it, and then discovered you couldn't. But sort of what do you have set up now beyond AA that makes this different now?
Yeah, full transparency. Had a lot of issues with my wife. We went to marriage counseling. We were talking about getting divorced. And now we're in the best place we've ever been because of the work that I've done. I've been willing to admit things that I needed to change about myself. So it's really humbled me because I was the 90% of the issue in the relationship, to be honest. She's a great person, and I had a lot of things that I didn't realize traumas and things I didn't realize I needed to work through. And I figured I could compartmentalize them and lock them away, kind of like I compartmentalize when I go from client to client to client, so I can be emotionally available for each equally. And I've learned that I can't apply that same rule to myself. And that's also why I maintain therapy, even though sometimes I will check in with my therapist for 15, 20 minutes and we don't have a lot to talk about, but she'll still just kind of ask me generally how I'm doing. And then sometimes we'll dive into some, deep stuff. I have a lot of accountability in my life from little things like, my wife has, our phones are connected. She can see where I go, where I come from. And for the first 3 years of this, I mean, if I went astray from the path at any moment, she would text me, "Where are you? Why are you there?" She doesn't do that anymore because I've gained her trust. Somehow, she's someone that's very difficult to get trust from. So I've worked really hard for that. Again, everyone in my family is very aware that I am an alcoholic and I am in recovery, and they know how to notice if my behaviors are off. They can, even my wife, if I miss 1 or 2 meetings, she'll be like, "Hey, what's up with your meetings?" So I have a lot of people around me who are very solid that are able to hold me accountable if I start to slip on my own self.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for right now. Mr. Jones?
Thank you.
Hi, Chris Jones, LEP member. Thank you for being here, Mr. Lyons. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons, for being here today. We appreciate your testimony. I'm Dr. Annette Walker, and I'm a public member. Just really quickly, I think you've done an excellent job, honestly, of candidly asserting the reasoning or rationale behind your petition today. And so I just want to make sure that I understand you clearly, okay? So correct me if I'm wrong. You have approximately 2.5 years remaining, correct, on your probation?
I believe so, ma'am, yes.
Okay, so do I hear you saying, just in everyday language, that the terms of the probation no longer serve you moving forward because you believe that you have been fully rehabilitated up until this point, given your testimony and everything that you've provided to us as exhibits in our board packet?
So I believe that I've met, besides the timeline of the other 2 years, obviously that would be a checkbox. And so, no, that would not be met the timeline officially. Everything else on there, yes, I believe I've accomplished or exceeded. However, I do not believe I am rehabilitated. I will always need to be in recovery for alcoholism. And I will always need to have a therapist, at least that down the line, maybe I even just check in once a month at some point. But I will always need those things because I believe that to say I'm rehabilitated means that I believe that I do not have to do work anymore. I believe that the things that the probation has asked me to do, I do those on my own accord and will continue to do those on my own accord because I believe that they are necessary and correct for me to maintain my marriage, my relationships, my friendships, and my professional integrity. But I do not believe that I'm rehabilitated or ever will be because, again, I believe that gives us an excuse to stop thinking we need to work on ourselves.
I appreciate your clarification. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Lorez Bailey, public member. I have one point of clarification and one question, and thank you for being here today. I just wanted a point of clarification. The day that you had the relapse and the accident, was that the day that you drank? Did you drink prior to that day, or was that day singularly the relapse?
Yes, man, that was the relapse. That was the drinking part of the relapse. So when I say I was relapsing prior, the behaviors of an alcoholic were sneaking in. I was not being as forthcoming as I should with friends and family, and my integrity was maybe not where it should be. But that was the first day that I drank, and just very quickly, I was out with my kids, and I had an impulsive decision of that sounds good. We were playing video games at an arcade, having fun, and they happened to have adult drinks in a section, and my impulsivity, that sounds good, and I did. And then that was the first day I drank and the last day I drank.
Thank you for that clarification. And then I wanted to go back to when you said the day of the accident, and to this day, you'll never forgive yourself. So I'm sure there's a lot of guilt and pain with that. Can you talk a little bit about, and you may have said never forgive yourself lightly, not really literally meaning, or you may have meant it literally, you'll never forgive yourself. But can you talk about that, the difficulty with that, and maybe guilt feelings and how you process those emotions?
I'm glad you asked that question because it is important. Because guilt and shame have a lot to do with our behaviors, especially when we talk about alcoholism. And I do want to make an important clarification. I feel guilty about what happened. I did something wrong, and I let my family down, and I let my kids down, and I put my kids in danger. And thankfully, they were young enough to where they don't have a memory of it. It seems, and I still have the opportunity for them to never see me under the influence with any awareness. But I do not feel shame, which is I am something wrong. I do not feel shameful. I am not wrong. I am a human, and I made a mistake, and I have weaknesses, and I wish it never happened. However, I will tell you that if it never happened, the one thing about it is I don't think my marriage would have survived if it didn't happen because there were a lot of problems there that needed to be addressed, and I needed to have a wake-up call that I was maybe needing to address some things, and I wasn't as put together as I wanted to believe I was. So I wish it didn't happen, but because it did, there's only two choices in adversity, right? Which is stay stuck in it in the poor me or use it to grow stronger. And so that's what I'm going to choose to focus on. And so I feel guilty, but I'm not ashamed.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Justin Huft, LMFT. Thank you, Mr. Lyons, for being here. I want to back up to something you said earlier about being a great therapist. Were you a great therapist before this process of probation?
Yes.
In what ways are you a different or greater therapist now?
I'm going to take a second before I answer that because I want to give you an honest answer. So my skills have improved only because I've continued to learn and grow, and I've developed certain modalities that I was interested in, getting qualified in things like EMDR and internal family systems. So objectively, I guess my skills have improved as a therapist. But really, we know therapy is, we're taught the science of it in school, and when we get out, we learn like, oh, this is, you have to learn the art to be a good therapist because you're dealing with humans, not cars and engines and machines and objective things. And so I think on that art piece, that subjective piece, it's just another adversity that has made me understand on a very empathetic level what my clients go through, and to be in a place where I'm supposed to be held as this respected therapist and very proud of myself for what I've accomplished and how people turn to me for the hard cases. And this was very humbling and reminded me even furthermore to just make sure I realize like there's always work to be done on both sides. I'm never done. I always have to maintain if I want to continue to be a good therapist. So I think it's just helped me really reroute myself in that humbleness, which is what makes you a good therapist, is when people come in and they feel like they're your equal, even though they look up to your expertise and experience.
Understood. Thank you. In terms of this developing empathy and increased skill set you're talking about, I want to connect that to the role of rehabilitation that you discussed. In your work, your performance evals seem to indicate you work with a wide variety of different issues. In your understanding, particularly in light of this increased empathy, increased skill building that you've had, do people with mood disorders, PTSD, grief, trauma, are they ever rehabilitated?
That's a good question. Okay, so I'm trying, I don't want to, I mean, saying the rehabilitated, it's almost, it can really depend on the semantics of what you're saying with that word. So if you mean rehabilitated, like final done, you've reached the finish line, no. Mental health is a journey, and it doesn't stop until we're no longer conscious. And that's everyone, whether you think you have a mental health disorder technically or not. So I think people are, we're never fully rehabilitated because that would imply that we're done. And I don't like that. We should never be done with mental health. So I think people can get to a point to where the vast majority of their day is about, how do I get groceries, and how do I, now I got to clean up the dog poo in the yard, and then what can I do for fun? Maybe go for a walk, instead of thinking about how do I not have these night terrors, and how do I not get triggered, and how do I avoid everyone? So I think you can shift to where people can live their life like whatever quote unquote normal people are, where they're more worried about, consequential things throughout their day rather than just trying to survive it.
Understood. Thank you. And in terms of the ongoing process of rehabilitation, there can certainly be external structural changes, and it sounds like you've created a lot of those with accountable friends and putting yourself in different situations. There can also be these internal changes, and I worry about the precarity of needing to go to AA as a replacement addiction. Can you talk a little bit more about the internal shifts and the coping skills that you have outside of these external networks?
Yes, so AA is part of that because it is a reminder. The steps are not about alcohol. The first step mentions alcohol, and the next 11 steps never say the word again. AA is just the entity that uses 12 steps. 12 steps is the reason why I go to meetings, because every single person on this planet should be doing the 12 steps, because it is about accountability. It is about getting rid of fear and resentment. Is it about making amends? And it is about reevaluating yourself every day to redo it. And then it is about giving back to your humanity, to your community. So the 12 steps are about humanity. And I just find that I connect with them most through the form of AA, because AA is specifically the issue, the behavior that I chose. It can be gambling, it can be sexual encounters, it can be heroin. They're all the same. It's a behavior that is a coping strategy for the real problem, which is the internal issues with the person not being happy with the reality, which is what you're addressing, which is perfect. I work with a therapist outside of AA for that particular reason, to make changes, to have cognitive shifts, to change the dialogues that were embedded in me for the first decade of my life, where I was either made to believe I was good enough or not good enough, lovable or not lovable, and to find ways to challenge those with objective feedback from people who are going to be honest and direct with me, like those at AA, like my therapist, like my friends and family, so that I can not feel like I'm not happy enough in my body with pure reality, and I don't need to escape reality for a relief with alcohol or any other behavior. Does that make sense? Was that correct?
Yes. Yeah, it does. Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, do we have any further questions from board members? Okay, seeing none, Judge Larson, we will send this back to you.
Mr. Arthur, any further questions?
No, thank you.
All right, Mr. Lyons, do you have any closing remarks for the board?
Just brief. I obviously don't know how these things go because I've never done them. And so I wrote an opening statement because I figured it would be good to structure. And I was like, maybe I should write a closing one, but I didn't know what was going to happen. Right?
You don't have to have a closing statement.
Yeah.
So, if there's just anything else you want to add.
The only thing I want to say is I do appreciate the questions that you asked, because I can tell that you were asking out of genuine concern and wanting to figure out if this was going to be the right decision, and not just because you were going through any kind of like process. And so some of those were difficult to answer, but I appreciate them. So thank you.
Any closing remarks, Mr. Arthur?
No, thank you.
All right. Is the matter now submitted for the board's consideration, Mr. Arthur?
Yes, Your Honor.
Matter submitted, Mr. Lyons?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, matter submitted. And the record is closed. We are off the record. All right. Before I let everyone go, Mr. Peters, do you have any spellings you need?
I do not have any spellings. The only thing I need is maybe an email from Mr. Lyons, contact info.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It is K as in kilo, E as in echo, and then my last name, L-Y as in Yankee, O-N-S, and then the digits 80 at Gmail.
And then just a phone number.
619 area code 632-1002.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You are free to go. And Mr. Peters, I just need an end time and a page count.
End time is 11:43 and the page count is 50.
All right. I will turn it back to the board chair.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're in need of a lunch break, so our staff needs 60 minutes. So we will go out for break now and be back at 12:45. Welcome back to the August on to item 6, another petitioner, and Judge Larson, I will turn it over to you.
All right, I'm just confirming that Ms. Laguna is with us. If you could just unmute yourself, Ms. Laguna.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
There we go. Good. And I just want to make sure, Ms. Laguna, that you have a copy of the petition documents that have been presented to the board and will be addressed today. Do you have those with you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you're delayed a little, so I don't know if it's just your audio, but we'll be mindful of that to make sure that you're not cutting out. All right.
Apologies.
Yeah, you're talking, but then there's a delay when we can actually hear it.
Okay. I just took everything else off Wi-Fi, so hopefully that helps.
Okay, good. All right, in just a moment here, we are going to get started with the hearing. We will go on the record, which means our court reporter, Mr. Peters, will begin transcribing everything. I will announce the case. I'll have the parties announce themselves, and then I'll briefly explain how the hearing will proceed this afternoon. And then if there's any questions, you can ask me at that time. All right? Yes?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Peters, just please tell me when you are ready.
I'm ready, Your Honor.
All right, on the record. Good afternoon. We are on the record. It's August 13th, 2026. It's 12:57 a.m. I'm sorry, 12:57 p.m. We are here before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California, in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation by Giselle Laguna. This is case number 2002-022-001-335. OAH case number 202-607-1095. My name is Marcy Larson. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, presiding over the matter this afternoon. And the board members have previously stated their names, and a quorum has been established. If counsel for the people would please state your appearance for the record.
Good afternoon, Philip Arthur from the Attorney General's Office.
And Ms. Laguna, you are here today representing yourself. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Right. And if our court reporter would please state his name and CSR number for the record.
My name is James Peters, and my license number is 10,063.
Right, Ms. Laguna, you understand that you could have had an attorney represent you at your own expense today,
Yes.
and you're choosing to proceed on your own behalf. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So we are here today because you have filed a petition with the board seeking early termination of your probation. You have the burden of proving to the board that your probation should be terminated early. The way that the proceedings will happen this afternoon is that Mr. Arthur, who represents the state of California in this matter, will provide the board with a brief history and overview of the discipline of your license. He will then address the petition documents, and I confirmed before we went on the record and got started that you have those petition documents. So once he presents those documents, I will ask you if you have any objection to any of those documents. So if you do, please let me know. I understand probably most of those documents that you prepared and submitted. After Mr. Arthur provides that overview and addresses the documents, I will swear you in, and you may provide the board with any testimony that you want the board members to consider in support of your petition. They have the benefit, of course, of having your petition documents and have reviewed those. But if there's anything in those documents you want to in particular highlight for the board, please feel free to do so. Understand that the board is primarily concerned with the rehabilitation you've undertaken since your license was disciplined and the reasons that you're seeking early termination of probation. After you're done providing testimony, Mr. Arthur will have an opportunity to ask you questions. Please understand that if you have any objection to any of the questions he asks of you, just please tell me. And an objection would be you requesting not to answer the question. So just tell me if there's a question that you don't want to answer, and I'll decide whether or not you're required to answer it. After Mr. Arthur is done asking you questions, I will ask the board members if they have any questions. So they will go one by one, stating whether or not they have a question. And then at the end, I will make sure that if there's anything in addition you want to add to your testimony, you have an opportunity to do so. During this proceeding, I cannot give any legal advice, but if anyone has any questions about the proceedings, please ask me, and if I can answer the question, I will. All right, any questions before we get started with Mr. Arthur's presentation?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Arthur, please provide the board with a brief history of the discipline in this matter.
Thank you. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General in accordance with Government Code Section 11522. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. In this case, Ms. Laguna became a licensed clinical social worker on December 1st, 2021. Effective April 4th, 2024, her license was placed on 3 years probation via a stipulated settlement, which was based on a first amended accusation that alleged that on July 14th, 2022, Ms. Laguna was convicted of violating Vehicle Code Section 23152, Subdivision B, with an enhancement under Vehicle Code Section 23578. Ms. Laguna has complied with all terms of her probation and now seeks early termination of her probation. And if I could go through the petition packet, which is marked as Exhibit 1, please.
Yes, please do so.
Thank you. Marked as Exhibit 1 and beginning on page master A as an apple 1 in Case Center is the petition packet. It consists of a memo from a probation analyst with the board summarizing Ms. Laguna's petition and probation compliance. It includes a redacted copy of the petition, a personal statement from Ms. Laguna, a document from Ms. Laguna's criminal case showing that her conviction was expunged under Penal Code Section 1203.4 on September 5th, 2025. There is a transcript from UC San Diego Extended Studies. There are 13 character reference letters. It includes drug testing results from AK&A Labs and Expertox, spelled EXPERTOX, dated May 12th and 24th of 2023. There are 7 certificates of completion from Cognitive Behavior Institute, Engaged Minds, Jerry Grossman Seminars, and ElevatedLifeAcademy.com. There are 2 receipts from the Department of Consumer Affairs reflecting $600 and $100 payments from Ms. Laguna on February 20th, 2026. There's a chart showing Ms. Laguna's participation in yoga at Mind Body. There is a completed psychotherapy information sheet. It also consists of the final decision in case number 200, 2022, 001-335, placing Ms. Laguna's license on 3 years probation, along with the accompanying stipulated settlement and underlying first amended accusation. And finally, it consists of Ms. Laguna's license history certification and the notice for today's hearing. I move to submit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Ms. Laguna, any objection to the documents that make up Exhibit 1?
No objection.
Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you. And because the burden is on Ms. Laguna, I have no further statement, but would reserve the right to question.
All right, Ms. Laguna, I'm now going to swear you in. If you would please raise your right hand, and you're going to need to unmute yourself. There you go. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Right, you may lower your hand. Please state and spell your name.
My name is Giselle Laguna, pronouns she, her. The spelling is G as in giraffe, I-S-E-L as in lake, L as in lake, E. Last name Laguna.
All right, Ms. Laguna, now is your opportunity to provide any testimony you want the board to consider. Just a few things to remember while you're testifying. As you know, we have a court reporter here. His job is to take down everything that's being said verbatim. So it is very helpful for you to keep your voice up and to speak a little more slowly than you would in a conversation. That will ensure that he can take down everything you're saying. It also ensures that all of the board members are hearing you as well. And as I mentioned, because there can be a little bit of a delay in your speaking, it's that speaking slowly assists with that. All right?
Okay, thank you.
You may begin.
First of all, thank you for having me here today. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here before you and to give some context and share a little bit about my story and what led up to me being here in the first place, what I've done since the night I got a DUI for my own rehabilitation, and where I'm at in life now, and why the board can trust that ending my termination early doesn't pose a risk or a danger to everyone else. So I prepared a statement. First, I would like to apologize for my behavior the night early morning of December 3rd and 4th in 2021. I was out at a happy hour with coworkers celebrating having received my LCSW license in the mail. My behavior that night was reckless, dangerous, and irresponsible, and I'm extremely grateful that I didn't hurt anyone. I'm disappointed it took this experience to help me understand so many life lessons, but I'm also grateful because the life I now lead is a more honest and authentic one. I genuinely believe that there's always something good that comes out of something painful. Out of this experience, I have learned how my previous life was ruled by shame, isolation, insecurity, and a crippling fear of failure. The night of my DUI, I was out celebrating, but I was also in a lot of emotional pain and dealing with grief. I now understand that I was binge drinking and using alcohol to cope with the pain I was dealing with at that time. Prior to this night of celebration, I had recently broken off my engagement to my partner of 4 years. The relationship wasn't healthy, and I was buckling under the shame of not being able to make it work. I had come out to family and friends because of this relationship, and I felt pressure to make it work at all costs because I was worried that if I couldn't, others would somehow be right, that maybe it's just a phase or that it was never going to work out anyway. My life changed the night early morning of December 3rd and 4th of 2021. I had never been in any kind of trouble before. Going to jail and dealing with the justice system was a big shock for me, and initially negatively impacted the perspective I had of myself. It intensified my shame, self-judgment, and self-loathing. Now I can say I'm grateful for the experience and that I have a deeper understanding of the justice system and even of what my license and hard work is truly worth. My regret for the decision to drink and drive was immediate. The same week I started attending AA meetings. I've maintained my sobriety since. I eventually submitted to hair follicle testing once I was legally charged with the DUI. I complied with all terms of my criminal probation, which ended on July 14th, 2025. The day I found out I was granted probation, I felt I had been given a second chance, and I vowed never to do anything that could put my license in jeopardy ever again. I have maintained my sobriety since that terrible mistake, and I decided I would do everything in my power to protect and keep my license, but I didn't know then how shame was still governing my actions. The last 4 years have been learning how to operate from a place of more sincerity and transparency. The day following my arrest, when I first spoke with my lawyer, I was too ashamed to admit I couldn't remember making the decision to drive because I made it while I was experiencing a brownout. I do recall being overwhelmed with grief and not wanting to be seen as weak by my peers by breaking down crying in front of them. I don't recall the moment I decided to go home or even turning the ignition on, but I do understand now that I was in denial and I was avoiding vulnerability in that moment. I now also understand my lawyer's suspicion of me, considering the high blood alcohol content I had. After completing a 9-month DUI program, completing the MAD victim impact panel, and completing the education required by the board, I now have a greater understanding of alcohol, my relationship with it, and the impacts it has on my body. These last 4 years have also been a time of personal transformation, growth, and confronting healing I wasn't aware I needed to do. I met my sponsor, Mary, while I was attending AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I attended AA consistently for the first 2 years, but transitioned to Smart Recovery after I started probation because it felt more aligned with my values. From AA, my personal journey of healing continued as I transitioned into attending Codependence Anonymous meetings, or CODA, at the suggestion and request of my sponsor, Mary. In 2024, I completed the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous. I finally admitted that I was powerless over others and that my life had become unmanageable. I learned that the binge drinking was a symptom of greater issues I was unaware of. Through CODA, I learned I was trying to regulate my self-worth through other people. Because of my codependence, I had unknowingly put my ex-fiance and relationship on a pedestal, and I made both of them my higher power. I slowly started to isolate myself and was consumed by my efforts to make a failing relationship work and to hide the deep sense of inadequacy I felt because of my inability to permanently end the relationship. We were on and off for the last 2 years of it. I judged myself harshly as an inadequate therapist as well, because my thought process was, if I can't manage my own romantic relationships, how could I ever truly help anyone else manage theirs? Obtaining my license in the midst of all this only exacerbated my shame and perfectionism. I didn't realize that these patterns and characteristics of perfectionism, low self-esteem, compliance, denial, controlling behavior, and avoidance of vulnerability were all just indications of my codependence, all of which is rooted in my early childhood trauma. Being in CODA, continuing therapy with my long-term therapist, having the support of my court-approved therapist, and currently attending Smart Recovery helped me to confront my perfectionism, people-pleasing, and isolating behaviors that led to my misuse and dependence on alcohol. By confronting shame head-on, I was able to make progress with significant life goals. I moved out of my mother's house into my own apartment. I started my private practice, and I started setting boundaries with my mother, coworkers, and other family members, despite the fear that I would lose the same supports that helped me to feel grounded and protected. My self-esteem has grown as a result. I also started forcing myself to get out and reconnect with my community of supports and create a new system rooted in authentic connection rather than the superficial and artificial connections I was prioritizing when I was out binge drinking on the weekends to cope with the pain of my failing relationship. It's been an arduous and terrifying process, but I'm proud of myself for doing this work because my relationships with everyone around me feel more authentic, and I no longer define myself by what I do or what I can provide to others. I recognize my worth is rooted in being, not doing. I'm able to be my true self, and I'm no longer operating from a space of fear of losing connection with others or from a space of feeling I need to perform to be perfect in order to be worthy of those connections. I'm requesting early termination of probation for multiple reasons. It's been a goal of mine to work in a hospital setting, and I can't while my license is restricted. When I was first placed on probation, I was working as an independent contractor through Alma. The day I informed them I was on probation, they instructed me to stop seeing clients immediately. Overnight, I lost my only source of income. I had to pivot. I had to ask family and friends for financial support, see clients at a reduced or free rate temporarily, and get independently paneled through multiple insurances. During this time, I also connected with the Burn Institute of San Diego as an independent contractor. I'm still contracted with them, and I also provide pro bono services to burn survivors. I would love to be able to work at the UCSD Burn Center and to provide more direct care, especially because there's a high need for bilingual providers. Getting off of probation would help me achieve this goal, and it would also alleviate the stress and uncertainty that sometimes comes with having a private practice as my only source of income. Additionally, with the support of my family, I was able to purchase a condo last week. Getting off of probation early would help increase my financial security as I start on this new journey of being a homeowner. There are several reasons why you can trust that ending my probation early is a safe choice. The day after I was booked and released from jail, I understood that my life had to change permanently if I had any hope of keeping my license. I understand that alcohol can no longer be a part of my life. I'm proud of the length of my sobriety and how I've been able to turn to different supports while encountering the challenges I have dealt with even while on probation, such as having to pivot my practice from one day to the next. I also understand that my emotional recovery will be a lifelong process. I've transitioned to working the steps in adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. And I'm currently working the 5th step with my sponsor, Mary, whom I still meet weekly or bi-weekly. The goal in ACA is to seek emotional sobriety by making a commitment to love ourselves and be good to ourselves. We stop harming ourselves by attaining ACA emotional sobriety. I attend ACA meetings and I'm actively working on building a new community here, in addition to maintaining the connection with my CODA family, which I still occasionally check in with. When I decided to pursue my MSW, the ethical standards of integrity and doing no harm really resonated with my own values. I was not upholding my own values or my ethical responsibilities as a social worker when I decided to misuse alcohol to the point where I wasn't cognizant of making a decision that could have lethally harmed others or myself. Part of my code of ethics is the responsibility to take care of myself, and I wasn't doing that effectively either. I hold these principles very close to my heart, and when I was an MSW student, I promised myself I would remain in therapy as long as I was a practicing clinician in order to work on myself and process my current stressors so that I would never unintentionally harm others in the way I was harmed by individuals in positions of authority in the past. I'm committed to keeping this promise to myself and to continue working on myself so that I can be the best therapist and the best person I'm capable of being. Lastly, I'm a vastly different person than the one who chose to use alcohol to cope with pain. Sobriety has forced me to confront my depression and anxiety symptoms, and I'm now taking medication despite my previous reluctance rooted in stigma, shame, and the fear of being imperfect. I didn't realize my social anxiety, combined with the pressure of perfectionism, also contributed to my binge drinking. I have recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and I now have a better understanding of my brain, how it functions, and what I gravitate towards when I'm seeking stimulation, dealing with boredom, or struggling with my executive functioning. The life I lead today is a more honest one. I'm not swimming in shame anymore, and I'm proud of the person I am today. I still fear failure and disappointing others, especially the people that have been fundamental to my success. But the relationship I have with myself now is much more loving, kind, and more realistic. I'm not striving for perfection anymore. I'm striving for balance. And that has drastically changed my life and my ability to be honest and transparent with my community of supports so that I'm not isolating myself anymore. I also understand that I'm not a robot and it's not a matter of if I'm going to struggle, but when. And I've developed a solid list of coping tools and healthy distractions that I can turn to when that day inevitably shows up. I consistently go to yoga and meditation. I have a wonderful scuba diving community that I regularly connect with that I'm very lucky to have. And I joined a book club that I'm actively developing deeper bonds with. I also attend a monthly supervision group with other clinicians of color where I seek additional support and accountability for my work in private practice. This experience has been humbling for me, but it's also led to an incredible transformation. I honestly don't think I would be the person or therapist I am today if it hadn't happened this way. I sincerely regret my decision to drink and drive and understand it was wrong, dangerous, and careless. But I am now at a place where I can focus on the benefits that have happened as a result, rather than use the experience as ammunition to amplify any sense of shame or inadequacy. I live a more honest, balanced, supported, and spiritual life on a level that I didn't even know was possible before. It's my hope that you can see my change is genuine and sincere, and that you'll grant my petition for early termination. I will continue to maintain my sobriety, continue to deepen my bonds with my friends and my family, and I will continue my healing journey. Thank you so very much for hearing me, and thank you for the opportunity to present before you.
All right, Mr. Arthur, questions for Ms. Laguna?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Laguna.
Good afternoon.
What have you learned since the discipline of your license that will assist you in not repeating the conduct described in the accusation?
I've learned that trying to motivate myself through shame isn't effective. I've learned that I can't do anything alone, that it really does require a village, community, support, and first of all, my higher power to tackle life's challenges, because I think I'm much more accepting now that life, people, including myself, are not perfect, and we really need each other.
What assurances can you offer to the board that similar misconduct will not be repeated?
I will maintain my sobriety. As I said in my statement, I'm still actively working through my emotional recovery. I will not stop going to CODA meetings, ACA meetings. I intend to use Smart Recovery as a tool. If I ever get to the point where I'm craving alcohol or thinking about it, I do intend to use that as an ongoing tool in addition to my other support systems. And because, I'm sorry, I never want to experience this pain again. I never want to experience this fear. I worked really, really hard to get here. It's meant a lot to me. And the life that I've started building now that I've been in probation is one that requires stability, consistency, professionalism, and I'm proud. I'm genuinely proud of the work that I've done and want to continue that path.
In your statement that you made and in your petition, you reference your sobriety. Do you have a sobriety date?
I stopped that night after the DUI, so I guess the 5th, December 5th, 2021.
And again, in your petition and in your statement, you referenced the fact that part of what contributed to your conduct for the DUI was what was going on in a romantic relationship that you were at the time. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you in a romantic relationship now?
I am not.
Have you thought about, I'll withdraw that question. Well, have you given any thought to how you would handle in the future any turmoil that might occur in a romantic relationship that you would become involved in?
100%. I've been dating on and off through this process, most recently this year, and I have had to deal with the little heartbreaks that come with thinking a relationship is going to go somewhere and recognizing that it's not a good fit. This process and doing the work through CODA and ACA has really helped me to recognize that in the past I was chasing unavailable love. I was performing for love rather than looking at people's behavior and actions and connecting with someone that was meeting me where I was at. And so not only am I dating with more intention now or seeking a romantic connection with more intention, I've also have a much stronger community of support that I rely on when I am struggling.
And my last question kind of ties in, I think, to your last statement there. What healthy coping tools do you use now instead of alcohol?
Meditation. I try to meditate as often as I can. Yoga, going on hikes. Scuba diving is a form of meditation. You have to be very intentional about not stopping your breathing. I know that for ADHD, movement is critical. So I'm constantly moving. I have a fur baby that I walk 3 times a day that I've scheduled my practice around. Not only does it benefit my pet, but it also benefits my own mental health. So I'm very intentional about how I've structured my life to prioritize my self-care.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
I'm going to now ask our board members if they have any questions, starting with the chair.
Thank you. Thanks for being here with us today and sharing your story. I don't have any questions at the moment, but I'll look to my right and start with Board Member Huft.
Justin Huft, LMFT. Thank you, Ms. Laguna, for your testimony. I apologize if I'm misquoting you, but I think you had said that you're still actively working through your emotional recovery. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that current work looks like and what you suspect this future work will look like?
So I'm just on the heels of finishing the 4th step in ACA, and that work was listing my, sorry, blanking on the term. Basically trying to list the areas where I need to be accountable for my behavior in relation to the people around me, how I responded as a child to the behavior of the adults that were caretaking for me, what emotional reactions I had, and also having accountability for now as an adult, how I behave in my relationships. And then the 5th step to that is, admitting to God that I'm powerless and need support with that process. So I will continue to do that work. Not sure if that answers your question.
It sure does. Yeah, thank you. In your verbal response, as well as in your written documents, you talk about being in the 4th step. Who is Mary White? Just for so that we can all be on the same page with this question.
She is someone that I met through AA and became my CODA sponsor, essentially, because I did not resonate with. I've been working really hard to deal on shame, and this is my own personal opinion. I know, it worked great for other people, but I felt that there were aspects of it that were shaming that I just didn't resonate for me, that I've been trying to work out of. And CODA resonated for me because it is an interpersonal approach.
Understood.
Hopefully
Thank
that
you.
makes sense.
It does. So Mary writes that you are currently in the process of 12-step work for the 2nd time. And I'm struggling a little with how to read that. Does this mean you have finished it and you're working through it again? Or does this mean you did not finish it, you're attempting it again? And how does either one of those interpretations fit with you saying you're working on the 4th step?
I'm working, when she wrote that letter, I am working on the 4th step through ACA. I finished the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous in 2024, July of 2024, or June, I believe.
Excellent. Thank you. That was the only point of clarification for me. No more questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Lorez Bailey, public member. Thank you for your deeply thoughtful testimony today and for being here. I have no additional questions.
Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Laguna. My name is Dr. Annette Walker. I'm a public member, and I too appreciate and thank you for your testimony this afternoon. I just need you to help me understand a little bit more, just by clarifying some of your testimony, okay? I'll be very specific and clarify as I can be. You mentioned that you're on a healing journey, and I appreciate that. And so I just want to gain a greater understanding of what that means to you. You said that you have experienced anxiety depression, and I believe you said that you were recently diagnosed with ADHD. Let me pause there and see if I'm understanding that part.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, and you said that unknowingly at the time that this incident occurred, did you later understood that it contributed to your binge drinking? Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Okay. And now it has also contributed to your being on a healing journey because this experience has afforded you to work through your codependency issues and your understanding of who you were then and who you are becoming. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then I see you and I hear you and I appreciate you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Laguna. I'm Chris Jones, LEP member. Thanks for being here. Thank you for your testimony. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laguna, so much for being here and for sharing your story with us. I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Hi. So from what I understand, you've completed ACA steps. Is that correct?
No, I've completed the 12 steps through Codependence Anonymous, that program.
But you're in the process of doing it through ACA?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so is there anything that stood out for you as far as those steps?
Just the shame that I was living with. I didn't realize how my life revolved around gaining everybody else's approval. Everything that I had been working up to that point, even becoming an LCSW, was about the success and how that made me perceived by others. And so, unfortunately, it took being on the brink of losing that for me to have to confront the shame and everything that showed up because of that experience.
So I was also curious about the day that this happened. It sounded like you and coworkers were celebrating.
Yeah, it was a Friday night. I was out at happy hour with coworkers.
Okay. So from what I understand, you're working independently now, because I've also seen that there's a lot of letters from like colleagues, or are they the similar coworkers or are they different ones?
No, those are different colleagues. So when I was just licensed, I was working at family health centers through the HIV case management program as an ACSW, and those are the people that I went out with. And actually, even after I got the criminal charges, I actually transitioned to working in the mental health setting once I was licensed within the same clinic, or I should say within Family Health Centers of San Diego at a different location. And so Ruth is one of the mentors, colleagues that I connected with while I was working over there as a licensed therapist.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Rebecca Thies, public member. I would just like to clarify what your plans are moving forward with your involvement with ACA, CODA, AA, and Smart Recovery. So if you're on step 4 or 5, I can't remember, with your ACA, when that's complete, what are your plans for continuing your involvement with those programs? And then additionally, you talked about Smart Recovery being there for you if needed. I can't remember your exact words, but I'm curious what that provides for you as a tool as well.
So part of the recovery work and the 12th step is being able to give back your own experience, strength, and hope. And so my plan is to continue to attend the ACA meetings. I'm a little bit more connected with CODA. I've already finished that program and I have deeper bonds there. So transitioning out of attending SMART recovery meetings as a priority means that I would be able to devote more time to Codependence Anonymous and ACA. In terms of, I think the question was, what do I get out of SMART recovery? Is that correct?
Yeah, I thought I heard you say that was there for you if you needed it. So perhaps I misunderstood what you were saying, but I was curious what that provided for you as a tool.
Well, it's been a learning ground of sorts. It's been a place where I've had to force myself to engage vulnerably, to openly admit that as a therapist, right, I've made this mistake. I'm dealing with my own DUI. I'm going to my own therapy. I'm mandated to be there. For someone that's a perfectionist and ruled by shame, that was a very, very, very tough and vulnerable thing for me to do, or has been for me to do. And now that I'm past that, the first year after I was incarcerated that night, I hid into a hole. My way of coping was just not going out, not doing anything with anybody. And I had to confront that through AA and then in SMART recovery. Now that I'm, however, 4 years past that now, it feels good to be able to provide the reassurance to people that are new in the program and say, I get it. I know what that feels like, and there's hope. It gets better.
Thank you. So with your involvement with CODA moving forward, or what you would want your involvement to be, what does that look like?
I would like to attend meetings more regularly. I don't attend consistently right now because I do prioritize attending SMART recovery at this time. And it would be nice to see my CODA family a little bit more frequently.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Just checking back in with board members. Oh, Susan, you have another question?
Excuse me, but I suddenly have one more question for you, Ms. Laguna. And that is that one of your letters mentions that one of the things that you did was work through a group called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. Was it that you finally recognized that you had inherited something from your family that you wish you hadn't inherited, and it was something that you now had to change? I mean, did it take this event for you to recognize that?
It took this event for me to recognize that I exhibited all of the characteristics of a para-alcoholic. The hypervigilance, I'm sorry, I can't think of every single one. But I was living in a state of denial around how I was using alcohol to cope. My perfectionism is rooted in childhood abuse. And I was in denial to a certain extent about that, I'd done work in therapy prior to address the childhood abuse, but not the impact it had on my personality in terms of shame and how I function through the world. Not sure if that makes sense in relation to others.
So it wasn't exactly, so it was abuse more than the history of your family that you think may have.
Yes, no, neither one of my parents or my stepfather was struggled with addiction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions from board members, Judge Larson, will turn it back over to you.
All right, Mr. Arthur, anything further?
No, thank you.
All right, Ms. Laguna, is there anything further you would like to add to your testimony?
Just to thank you again for the opportunity to be here and for hearing my story.
Any closing remarks, Mr. Arthur?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, is the matter now submitted for the board's consideration, Mr. Arthur?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Laguna, board matter submitted for the board's consideration? Yes?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, matter submitted and the record is closed. We are off the record. All right, Mr. Peters, do you need any spellings before I release the parties?
I do not need spellings, but I just need contact information from Ms. Laguna. If I could just get an email and a phone number.
First initial, last name, GLAGUNA25
Okay, and a phone number?
619-403-1864.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The parties are free to go. And Mr. Peters, I just need an end time and a page count.
End time is 1:40 and page count is 30.
All right, I will turn it back over to the board chair.
Okay, thank you. At this point, it is time for us to adjourn into closed session. I think board members will take a little 10-minute break while we set up for closed session. The board does intend to come back into public session later this afternoon to consider item 10, the 2026 to 2030 strategic plan. Thank you.
All right, and this is Judge Larson. I just want to double check that this is the same webinar link that I need to use for closed session.
Yes, we'll have Caesar and Christina will be kicking everybody else out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
This is a moderator. This is the moderator. I'll go ahead and put the hearing room and the ALJ into that private room. And then whenever you're ready to get the closed session started, you can begin. And everyone else can sit and wait until we come back into open session.
Welcome back to the August 13th Board of Behavioral Sciences meeting. We were scheduled to hear item 10, discussion and possible action to approve the 2026 to 2030 strategic plan. No, that was the remaining item today. We're going to be postponing, given the late hour, we're going to be pushing that item to tomorrow morning. And then we will hear that first thing in the morning. And then otherwise, we will be in recess until 8:30 tomorrow morning, Friday, August 14th. Thank you.